Husband wanted a baby to fix our marriage while cheating on me, so I left and filed for divorce, but he and his family are blowing up my phone and begging me to come back. My husband, Theo, and I have been together for 5 years and married for 3. Theo and I met in college and we started dating in our final semester, and since then, we had been together. We have had a fairly normal relationship with ups and downs like any other couple. Recently, after our 3rd marriage anniversary, he told me that he wanted to start trying for a baby because he thought that it was the right time to start a family. And he was right. We were both in pretty great places career-wise and we're in our mid-20s and have already been together for quite a long time, so it's a pretty good time to have a baby. I agreed, and after trying for a couple of months, I finally got pregnant 2 months ago. I was overjoyed and he seemed happy as well, but it wasn't until a week ago that I found out that it was all for show. Until now, the only people who know about the pregnancy are our families and a couple of close friends, but we haven't made any announcement yet. So last week, when I saw a notification on his phone from a coworker, asking if he was really fine with a pregnancy, it caught my interest. Because Theo himself had told me that he wanted to keep the pregnancy under wraps for a couple of months, so I didn't know why he had spoken to his coworker about it. And he was on his phone when he received that message, so I could have just asked him about it, but I had a gut feeling that he wouldn't tell me the truth. So later that night, I decided to go through his phone. I had to snoop because it was just my gut feeling that told me that I confronted him about it. I was never going to get a straight answer and he might even delete all the messages, so I never would have been able to find out either. And I'm so glad that I decided to go through his phone secretly instead of just confronting him because of the things that I found in that conversation with his coworker. I'm pretty sure he never would have confessed to it himself if I didn't already know the truth. I had to scroll up quite a lot to find out the context, but here's the deal. Theo had been talking to one of his coworkers about a new employee who had joined recently, and they had become quite close friends since he had been training her. Let's call this woman Natasha, and Natasha happens to be quite attractive, since I met her at a party and I did not suspect anything off because my husband's behavior with her had been quite cordial at the party. They seemed to be good friends and nothing more, so I had no reason to doubt him. But after reading the texts he had sent his friend from work, realized that he was just putting on a front so that I wouldn't suspect anything, but in reality, he was quite attracted to her and he had talked about it to his friend in detail. It was quite gross because he had said things like he couldn't stop thinking about her, even when he was with me, and even though they hadn't exactly done anything yet, he had confessed that he wouldn't be against the idea if she tried to make a move on him. And if you think that that's the worst thing that he could have said, it actually gets even worse. He had also spoken about how he had started to find me very irritating and I had been getting on his nerves recently. In comparison, the time that he spent with Natasha seemed to be a lot more pleasant for him, so much so that he would end up finding himself waiting to go back to work every time that he would come back home to me, and he didn't feel like speaking to me at all, but he had to because I was pregnant and he didn't want me to suspect anything. He had said that he hated even having to sleep in the same bed with me, but he had no other option. His coworker has been trying to reason with him and had called him out on his strange behavior because it was really wrong of him to be leading me on like this, especially when he knew that he had started to lose feelings for me. The worst part was that Natasha had joined their workplace about 8 months ago, and I knew that because he had told me about how he had to help train a new employee and how annoying it was for him around that time. And if I'm not wrong, we celebrated our wedding anniversary 2 months after Natasha joined. So by the time that he had suggested the idea of starting a family, Natasha had already become a part of his life and they had been friends at the time. I couldn't for the life of me figure out why he would suggest starting a family with me if he had started to lose feelings. He could have still changed his mind a few months after our anniversary, but he continued to actively try having a baby with me, and all the while, he was falling out of love with me. It was a betrayal of the highest degree and I just couldn't figure out why he would do something like this to me. That night, I spent half of the night reading the messages and scrolling up as much as I could, and after I had read everything, I just kept his phone beside him and tried to go to sleep on the couch because I couldn't stand to lie beside him. But I couldn't bring myself to go to sleep, no matter how hard I tried, and when he woke up in the morning, he was quite shocked to see me on the couch. I was honestly in a daze, but when he came to me and hugged me in the morning, I was so disgusted that I ended up pushing him away, and I immediately told him that he didn't have to act like he was in love with me anymore because I knew about Natasha. I had read all the messages that he had been sending to his coworker and now, I was going to leave him. When I pushed him away, he seemed surprised, but my worst fears were confirmed when he did not even try to deny any of it. He just kept looking at the floor after my outburst, and that was even more frustrating for me because the least he could do was at least give me some answers. I had spent the entire night thinking about what I would say to him, but honestly, when I had the opportunity, I couldn't do anything but just cry on the couch beside him. Because unlike him, I was still in love with him and I wanted to make things work, but it was clear to me that it wouldn't be possible because I didn't think that he wanted to make it work. After crying for a good couple of minutes, I just asked him why he had decided to have a baby with me, especially when he knew that he was falling out of love with me. Because I knew for a fact that by the time he had suggested starting a family, he had already started developing feelings for Natasha. And finally, that got him to talk, and he told me that he had suggested having a baby with me because he thought that this was just a phase and it would become easier for him to feel reconnected to me again once we had something to bond over, like a baby. So basically, he had thought that having a baby was going to solve everything. But unfortunately, it hadn't solved anything. He had still continued to fall out of love with me and he was falling for Natasha instead. I don't know if it was or if he was infatuated with her because he was bored with our marriage, but all I knew was that he did not love me anymore. And because of him, I was not pregnant with the baby of a man who did not even love me, and it was just heartbreaking. After he told me that, he started to apologize to me, but I didn't even want to hear it. At that point, all I wanted to do was get away from him, so I packed a few of my things and left. He kept apologizing but did not try to stop me, so I ended up going to my parents' place, and once I was there, I finally just had a complete meltdown. I told them everything about what I had found on his phone, what he had said, and I told them that I did not want to go back to him. My dad was furious, but he kept his temper under control, and he told me that I was going to be living with them now, and whatever I needed to be brought back from my place, he would get it for me, but I didn't have to go back to see him again. My mother called up my uncle who has a law firm and asked him to put me in touch with a competent divorce attorney as quickly as he could so we could start the legal proceedings because there was no going back after this. I had the good sense to take a couple of screenshots of the conversation between him and his coworker, and just for good measure, I'd even taken a couple of screenshots of his conversation with Natasha. Although I have to admit, his conversation with his coworker was a lot more incriminating than his chats with Natasha, because even though he would flirt with her occasionally, and she would flirt back, they never took it too far and mostly talked about work, but there's no telling what they got up to in person. Either way, I was not mad about whatever had or had not happened with Natasha. I was upset because he had actually said that he wouldn't be against the idea of cheating on me if Natasha wanted to make a move on him, and I didn't even care if it was a hypothetical situation. It was bad enough that he was even considering it. For me, that was as good as actually cheating on me, and let's not forget the fact that he had also talked a bunch of crap about me, like how he had started to find me annoying and how he had been pretending to be in love with me, and suggested that we have a baby because he thought that would be the solution to all our problems. Basically, everything that he had done was unforgivable, and I had no intention of going back to him. But neither did I have any intention of giving up the baby or terminating my pregnancy, just because the dad had turned out to be a jerk. I was ready to be a mother, with or without a husband. So along with a divorce, I also decided that I was going to file for full custody of my child, at least until my baby was old enough to be left alone with his father. Worst comes to worse, I would agree to visiting rights, but there was no way that I was going to let him have partial custody. And these are the terms that I told my divorce lawyer so he could start the process, prepare the paperwork, and file for the divorce and custody of my child. If you asked me, I thought I had been more than fair, because it's not like I had asked for any alimony since I was also a working woman, and I made the same kind of money that he did. Neither did I ask for any settlement money, I just wanted a fair and equal division of all our joint assets. The only thing that I was demanding was child support, because whether he liked it or not, it had been his idea to have a baby, even though he had already fallen out of love with me at that point, and it was just a last-ditch attempt by him to find a point of commonality so we could still be together, because he was too much of a coward to be honest with me and himself. He definitely owed me child support, and in my opinion, the terms of the divorce were completely fair. I had blocked him the day that I left home, and within a couple of days of that, he had been served. That had been around 2 days ago, and since then, his family has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, begging me to come back. I guess by now, both his parents and his siblings have found out what he had been up to. Strangely enough, he told them what had really happened, and even more strangely, they think that it's still reasonable enough to ask me to come back to him. I haven't answered a single phone call from his family, but they still keep texting me relentlessly, from several social media accounts, since I started blocking them. They believe that he and I can still make it work, because even though he had been thinking about somebody else, it's not like he had actually done anything. And until he actually physically acts on his thoughts, it's no harm done. I don't think they understand the concept of emotional cheating, but it's not my responsibility to explain it to them, so I haven't said anything about it. I know, for a fact, that no matter how hard they try to convince me, it's not going to work, and I'm definitely not going back to him. But the only reason that I'm here right now, doubting myself, is because they think that, even if I don't come back to him, it's still unfair of me to demand full custody of the child, because he wants to be a father as well, and the child is not mine to claim. The baby has his genes as well. So even if I don't come back for the sake of our marriage, the least I can do is at least entertain the idea of partial custody, because he deserves it. And right now, I'm in a dilemma about whether I should actually consider it or not, or whether I should stick to my demand for full custody. So AITA for demanding full custody of my future kid because my husband had been emotionally cheating on me with a coworker? Update 1. Hi. So I have spoken to my parents about what my in-laws have been saying, and they have told me that it's my body, my baby, and at the end of the day, it has to be my decision what I want to do. Besides, it's Theo who screwed up, not me, so if somebody has to make any sacrifices, it has to be him. If they want to contest my decision for full custody, they are definitely free to do so. I'm not going to stop them or try to argue with them, but it has to be fought out in court. And I'm not going to allow them to make me feel guilty about what my gut says. I believe that it would be better for the baby to spend the initial few years only with me, and I don't think that at the moment, I will be fine with co-parenting my child with Theo. I absolutely hate him right now, and I can't even stand the sight of him, so co-parenting is out of the question, and that's why I've decided that I want full custody. But of course, we are going to have to speak to a mediator first, and if we are not able to come to a conclusion there, this is going to go to family court. I think that's the only fair way of deciding what's right. I think they should let the legal proceedings take their course, and then, we'll see what happens. That's what I texted them, so they would stop bothering me relentlessly. Because honestly, his parents and his siblings, his 2 older sisters, have no business telling me what's right for my baby and what's not. I had a normal civil relationship with his family for so long, but if they are going to pretend I am the bad guy for wanting to leave him, I don't want anything to do with them. And I definitely don't need advice about marriage or kids from them, because they decided to support Theo. They have been trying to convince me that what he ordered was not all that bad, because at least he did not actually cheat on me. Like I said, it's not my responsibility to explain to them that emotional cheating is still cheating, and honestly, I'm just too exhausted from having to deal with all of this to speak to them about these things as well. I just want them all to leave me alone. if I'm being honest, and the only reason that I responded to them with my message. I also told them that the way they have been harassing me online by texting me constantly from various accounts, even after they have been blocked, only reflects badly on them when this goes to family court because I'm definitely going to be bringing it up. I don't know if it's going to stop them from texting me again and again because it's only been a couple of hours since I sent that message, but I'm really hoping that it does because it's already very difficult for me to cope with what's going on, especially since I'm pregnant. I definitely don't need more trouble on my plate from his end right now. Neither he nor his lawyer has responded to our petition yet, so I guess it's going to take time. If they just had to agree with whatever our terms were, they probably would have responded sooner, but now I'm guessing that they don't agree. I've been very stressed out about all of this, but I'm really happy to have my family by my side. So far, only a couple of people knew about the pregnancy, and I'm going to keep it that way because the last thing that I need right now is a bunch of people texting me and trying to talk to me. Only my parents and my close friends know what's going on in my life regarding Theo, and they have all been there for me to the best of their abilities. It has been a little over a week since I left home, and a couple of days ago, I told my dad that I wanted to go back to bring everything that I had left and wasn't able to pack before I left. But true to his words, he told me that I didn't need to go back and see Theo, he was going to get it all done for me. So he and a couple of my friends went over to Theo's place this weekend since we knew that he was going to be home. They managed to get all the stuff back to me without any trouble, and my friends told me that Theo steered clear of them the entire time they were there, as if he was scared of what they were going to say or how they were going to behave with him. Lucky for him, my dad and my friends did not even acknowledge his existence while they were there. They were only there to collect my things, and once that was done, they left. I asked my friends if he had been acting any differently because it was really curious to know how this was affecting him, and they told me that he had only been around them for a couple of minutes and he just seemed tired. Apparently, it was very clear from the way he had completely given up on his appearance that he was not doing great right now. He had bags under his eyes and he hadn't shaved for quite a couple of days. Having been with him for almost 5 years, I know that he takes great care of his appearance, so I know that he is not doing well. And I don't know how to feel about it, but I'm trying not to think about it at all because it's only going to hurt me. Whatever has happened cannot be undone, and I have to look out for the future now. Update 2. So Theo and his lawyer finally responded to her petition, and surprisingly, they are not only contesting my demand for full custody of our child, but they are also contesting the divorce itself as well. I will be honest, I definitely expected him to contest the custody, but I really didn't think there was any reason for him to contest the divorce. After all, I thought that that's what both of us wanted. He had started to fall out of love with me and had even claimed that if Natasha tried to start something with him, he would be open to it. Obviously that meant that he was no longer interested in being with me anymore, and after being betrayed like this, I was not feeling very inclined to continue our marriage either. So if neither of us wanted to be with each other, that obviously meant that the only way out was getting a divorce. I thought it was a relatively straightforward solution, but I don't think that's what he wants. I know that he's not doing this because he's still in love with me, he's definitely doing this because he wants it to be easier to get custody of his child. It was probably his family's, because if he had still been in love with me, he would have at least tried to contact me or to apologize. I'm not saying that I would have accepted or I would have gone back to him, but that's literally the least that he could have done. And honestly, contesting the divorce is just going to be a waste of both our time because I don't think there is any court in the world that is going to be able to force me to stay with him, and I don't think that's how it works either. All it is going to achieve is just making the process of getting a divorce longer and more expensive, and I don't know what he's hoping to gain from that, but I can assure everyone that it's not going to work. I've already spoken to my lawyer, and he thinks that the most that he can get out of this is a couple of mediation sessions and maybe couples counseling at most, but if I stand my ground and make it clear that I don't want to go back to him, then we will have to be granted the divorce. And to top it off, I also have proof of him wanting to cheat on me, so I don't know what he's been thinking. Anyway, they had taken me by surprise, but I'm prepared to fight now. Both for getting the divorce that I want and also for full custody of my child. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that everything works out in my favor, and I don't care how long it takes, but I'm definitely going to try my best to make sure that it does. Update 3. So it's been almost 1 month since I left home and we have already started our mediation sessions. We have a court-appointed mediator and we're going to first try to sort things out here, and in case it doesn't work out, which I'm trying to ensure it doesn't, we are going to head to family court. In my honest opinion, I think that's the only way to deal with this because mediation is just a waste of time. Mediation is for people who think they have a shot at coming to a common ground and avoiding court, but I really don't think that is going to work out for me and Theo. It's very obvious that we want very different things, like he wants to cheat on me and I want a happy and healthy marriage. See, it just doesn't work out because we are so different. Anyway, things have been hard because I've had to see him in person a couple of times now, and it's difficult for me because the pregnancy has been messing up my hormones, and every time that I see him or think about him, I just feel like breaking down. So it's been very difficult for me to hold myself together, especially when I have to sit through the mediation sessions and stare at his stupid face. I've tried my best to keep my cool because that's what my lawyer has advised me, and that's what I've been sticking to. He would try to avoid even looking at me during the first couple of sessions, and that suited me just fine, but recently, he had started trying to at least talk to me, but then we had to terminate those sessions early because I didn't want him to address immediately, and I only wanted him to speak to me through my lawyer. The last time that we had a mediation session, a couple of days ago, he kept quiet throughout the session, and yet another day was wasted, but while I was leaving, he stopped me in my tracks and told me that he wanted to speak to me in person. I tried to dodge him and leave, but he just kept standing in my way and told me that he just wanted to apologize for everything and that he really didn't want things to end this way. It was just exasperating, so I told him that if he really was apologetic for everything, then he could show me that he was sorry by accepting my terms of the divorce and the custody arrangement and leaving me alone. That's the only way that I would accept his apology, and if he wasn't ready to do that, then he should at least just let this go to court instead of wasting my time and money. Then, I pushed him aside and I went back to my car and I made sure to mention what just happened to my lawyer as well. A few days have passed since then, and today, my lawyer told me that he had received an email from Theo, saying that he was ready to accept the terms of the divorce, but he wanted partial custody of our child when our baby was born. So now, I'm gonna have to think about what I want and decide if that's a deal worth my time or not. But I'm glad that at least he has put this option on the table, because I'm sick of fighting. I just want to be done with this. So who knows, maybe this is a good thing. Update 4. Hi, it's been a few weeks since I last posted and I've been quite busy since I've gotten along, and there were a few complications regarding the pregnancy, but they're all sorted out now. Anyway, my lawyer and I decided that we were going to agree to his terms. He gets partial custody and we go through with the divorce. So that's why we have decided, and we have communicated to his lawyer as well, so all that's left is for the divorce to be finalized and all the paperwork to be done. Then, we stick to the arrangement that we have decided. It's a fair enough deal, and honestly, I just wanted everything to be over. He reached out to me shortly after my lawyer contacted him and told him that I was willing to agree to his terms and send me an email, thanking me for everything. Once again, he apologized for putting me through all of this, but that doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. I'm just glad that I can move on with my life now and I don't have to have anything to do with him anymore. It's going to hurt, but I'm strong enough, I can deal with it. And I have my parents and my friends by my side, so I'll be fine. Update 5. Hi. So it's been a little over 6 months since I last posted an update here, and it's about time that I fill you guys in on what's been going on. Last week, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter, and my life has suddenly become all about her now, and I couldn't be happier about it. Theo really stepped up as a father and tried to be there for me as much as he could, and since we were going to have to stick to a co-parenting agreement, we tried to be civil to each other. We don't talk about anything apart from our daughter, and that's fine with me. I have started my healing process and I'm trying to move on from him. I think I'm almost there, to be honest, because nowadays, when I see him, I don't really feel anything. From what I know, he has started dating Natasha, probably after the divorce was finalized. Good for him, I guess. Right now, dating is off the table for me. I just want to be a good mother to my daughter, and I'm completely devoted to that one job. Theo and I are still trying to figure out a way to make sure that both of us get equal time with her, but until then, he's going to have to keep visiting me at my parents' place if he wants to see his daughter. My parents have been kind enough to open up their home to him and his family because all of them want to see her, and we are all trying to keep it civil, for her sake. Hopefully, someday in the future, things will be okay, but for now, this is good. I found out my parents changed their will, and I'm not in it. A 29-year-old guy, and I've always had a complicated relationship with my family. There's my younger sister who's 27 and has this constant need to compete with me. And then there's my younger brother, 25, the golden child. I've always been the responsible one, the dependable son who helps out with everything while my siblings seem to coast through life. That's why what happened recently caught me completely off guard and has left me reeling. It all started with a chance encounter at a coffee shop. I was grabbing my usual morning coffee when I spotted the family lawyer, Mr. Jenkins. He's known us for years, handled all the family's legal stuff, wills, trusts, everything. It felt a bit awkward bumping into him since it was out of the blue. I went over, exchanged pleasantries, and made a joke about him working too hard. He looked surprised, almost like he wasn't expecting to see me there, then he slipped up. He mentioned something about hoping the changes to the will weren't causing any family drama. I was like, what changes? The look on his face said it all. He realized he'd said too much and tried to backpedal, saying it wasn't his place to discuss anything and that I should talk to my parents. I didn't press him further right there, but the pit in my stomach grew. Changes to the will? Why would there be changes? And why was I not aware of them? I left the coffee shop and went straight home, feeling this uneasy sense of urgency. I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head. It made me think about the past few months and how strange things had been with my parents lately. My mom, especially, had been distant. She'd started ignoring my calls or making excuses about why she couldn't meet up. My dad didn't seem any different on the surface, but he's always been the type to go along with whatever my mom decides, so it was hard to tell. Then there's the issue with my siblings. My sister and I have always had a tense relationship. She has this way of undermining me, making snide comments, and generally acting like she's competing for our parents' attention. My brother, on the other hand, is practically worshipped by them. He's the one who can do no wrong and everyone seems to bend over backward to accommodate him. For years, I tried to brush it off, but it's hard not to notice the favoritism. I started thinking back to a recent family dinner we had. It was a few weeks ago, and at the time, I didn't think much of it. We were all sitting around the table, and my mom made a comment about future plans and how everything was finally settled. I remember laughing it off as just vague talk, but now it feels like a piece of the puzzle I completely missed. After the coffee shop encounter, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I decided to share what happened with my best friend, Chris. He's been my sounding board for years and I knew he'd give me some perspective. I told him about what the lawyer said and Chris was immediately suspicious. He pointed out how odd it was for Mr. Jenkins to let something like that slip and suggested I confront my parents directly. It made sense, but I was hesitant. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I also couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in my gut. A few days later, I decided to visit my parents unannounced. I showed up at their house and the vibe was off from the moment I walked in. My mom looked startled to see me and there was this uncomfortable silence that hung in the air. When I casually brought up the topic of estate planning, she got defensive, saying it wasn't something I needed to worry about. It was clear she didn't want to talk about it, and my dad just sat there not meeting my eyes. I left feeling even more uneasy. Something was definitely going on. I started noticing changes in my siblings too. My sister seemed unusually confident, almost smug, like she knew something I didn't. My brother, who usually doesn't talk about money, made a joke recently about not having to worry about finances ever again. It felt like a jab, though I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't take it anymore, so I confronted my sister. I asked her directly if she knew anything about changes to the will. She just smirked and said, "Don't worry about things that don't concern you." It was infuriating, and I left more confused than ever. Finally, I went to my mom again, trying to get a straight answer. I asked her what was going on, why I was being left out of these decisions. She didn't look at me, just said, "We've made decisions we believe are fair," and then changed the topic. It was like hitting a brick wall. I started panicking a bit after that. I've always assumed that there would be some sort of safety net, that if anything happened, my parents would have our backs. But now, it felt like I was being pushed out, excluded from whatever plans they were making. I kept thinking about all the times I'd been there for them, driving them to appointments, helping with the house, while my siblings barely lifted a finger. I decided I needed answers, so I called Mr. Jenkins. He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but finally admitted there was indeed a change to the will. I wasn't included in it. He suggested I talk to my parents for more details, but I hung up feeling like the floor had fallen out from under me. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am, blindsided by my own family. I can't let this slide. I need to find out why they cut me out, and I'm done playing nice. It's time to confront them and get the truth once and for all. Update 1. After finding out that I was cut out of the will, I knew I couldn't just sit back and take it. I called my parents and siblings and told them we needed to meet. No more vague comments. No more dodging questions. I wanted answers, and I wanted them face to face. We agreed to meet at my parents' house, where all the family discussions have happened over the years. I remember walking in with my heart pounding, but I was determined. Whatever was going on, I wasn't leaving until I knew the truth. From the moment I stepped inside, the tension was thick. My mom was already in the living room, arms crossed, looking defensive. My dad was sitting quietly in his favorite armchair, staring at the floor. He wouldn't look at me, which was strange. Normally, he's the first to greet me, but this time it felt like he wanted to be anywhere but here. My sister was perched on the edge of the couch, scrolling through her phone like she couldn't care less. My brother, on the other hand, was leaning back with this smug look on his face, like he'd been waiting for this moment. He was the first to break the silence, chuckling and saying, "Well, it's about time we had this talk." That set the tone for the entire meeting. I knew then that whatever was about to happen, my brother was enjoying it. I didn't waste time. I asked them directly why I was removed from the will. I wanted a straight answer, no more evasions. My voice was steady, but I could feel the anger boiling underneath. My mom snapped back almost immediately, accusing me of being ungrateful. She said I had no right to question their decisions and that I should be thankful for everything they've done for me. It was like she was trying to turn it around, making me look like the bad guy for even asking. My dad still hadn't said a word. My sister is hosting a family roast, and unfortunately, I'm the main target. Situation that felt like a trap from the start. It all began when my sister, Lily 28F, announced in our family group chat that she was organizing a family roast at our upcoming reunion. At first, I thought I'd misread the message. A roast? For our family? This wasn't something we'd ever done before. And the way she phrased it made it clear who the main target would be. Me. Everyone seemed excited right away. My parents sent thumbs up emojis, my cousins started joking about what they'd wear, and the group chat lit up like it was Christmas morning. But I couldn't shake this bad feeling. I know my sister. Lily has a habit of taking things too far, hiding her insults behind a mask of humor. For years, she's made me the punchline of her jokes, and every time I tried to speak up, the response was always the same. "Oh, come on. She's just being playful." But it never felt playful on my end. So I brought it up with my parents. I called them that same night, saying I wasn't sure this roast was a good idea. I told them it sounded more like an excuse for Lily to drag me through the mud again, but they just laughed it off. My dad even said, "You need to learn to take a joke, son, it's all in good fun." I tried to push back, but they wouldn't hear it. My mom said it would be a good bonding experience for the family. Bonding, sure, if that means bonding over humiliating me. So I brought it up with my parents. I called them that same night, saying I wasn't sure this roast was a good idea. I told them it sounded more like an excuse for Lily to drag me through the mud again, but they just laughed it off. My dad even said, "You need to learn to take a joke, son. It's all in good fun." I tried to push back, but they wouldn't hear it. My mom said it would be a good bonding experience for the family. Bonding? Sure. If that means bonding over humiliating me. The next few days were tense. Lily kept hyping up the event in the family group chat, dropping hints about her special material. She was having way too much fun with this, and the more she talked about it, the more I felt like a cornered animal. Even my parents got in on it, making jokes like, "I hope you're ready, P. Lily's been preparing for weeks." It was clear they were all in on this, and I started feeling like I was alone in a crowd of people who couldn't see the problem. Thankfully, my girlfriend Sophie 25F noticed something was off. I hadn't even told her about the roast yet, but she could tell I was anxious. When I finally explained everything, she was as concerned as I was. Sophie knows the history here. How Lily's jokes have always had an edge to them. How she'd use family gatherings as her own personal comedy club at my expense. Sophie said it straight. You don't have to go if you're uncomfortable. Set your boundaries. I knew she was right, but the thought of backing out made me feel like a coward. I didn't want to give Lily and the rest of the family another reason to call me oversensitive. It's been this way for as long as I can remember. Growing up, it was always me versus Lily, the perfect golden child. She was funny, outgoing, and had this sharp wit that everyone adored. I was the quieter one, more reserved, and that made me an easy target. She'd say something embarrassing about me, and instead of stepping in, my parents would laugh along. They treated it like sibling rivalry, but it never felt like a fair fight. The roast just seemed like the next level of this long-standing dynamic. Despite Sophie's advice, I decided to at least try setting some boundaries. I sent Lily a private message asking her to keep the jokes light. Her response? Oh my god. You're being so sensitive. Relax. It's going to be hilarious. She promised to tone it down, but I knew better. Her tone made it clear she wasn't taking me seriously at all. Then the rules of the roast got posted in the group chat. It was a long list, but the one part that stood out to me was this. Everyone's fair game, but we have a special guest of honor, up. The whole thing read like a setup. I couldn't believe it. I tried once more to back out saying maybe it wasn't the best idea for me to participate, but the backlash was immediate. My mom called me sounding genuinely annoyed. You're not backing out now. We've all been looking forward to this and you're going to ruin it for everyone if you don't show up. The guilt trip worked and I reluctantly agreed to go. As if things couldn't get worse, I found out Lily had invited some unexpected guests, extended family members I hadn't seen in years, and a couple of old high school friends. People who knew me back when I was an awkward teenager. The idea of them sitting there watching me get roasted in front of everyone made me feel sick. Then came the final straw. My cousin Rachel 27F gave me a heads up. Lily had been gathering stories about me for weeks. She had been messaging family members asking for any embarrassing dirt they could remember and putting together a script. It felt like a hit job disguised as a joke. I confronted my parents again telling them this wasn't right, that it felt like an attack. They dismissed me again saying I was being dramatic and needed to lighten up. With no other choice, I decided I'd go to the reunion, but made a backup plan to leave if things got ugly. I told Sophie I was giving my family one last chance to prove me wrong. But the night before the event, Lily sent a message that hit me like a gut punch, can't wait for tomorrow. Finally going to say what everyone's been thinking. At that point, any hope I had left was gone. I knew I was walking into a trap. Update 1. The day of the reunion came and I went in feeling tense but determined. Sophie was by my side trying to keep things light. The place was packed, a big rented hall filled with familiar faces. Everyone was in a great mood and it felt like a real celebration at first. There was music playing, tables set up with food, and my parents were busy making small talk with relatives we hadn't seen in years. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Lily was in her element, moving from group to group, clearly the star of the show. She was laughing loudly, greeting everyone with hugs and jokes. It seemed like the whole room was revolving around her. I spotted a few high school friends Shed invited without telling me and it hit me again how much effort Shed put into this. I tried to stay calm and told myself maybe I was overthinking it. Sophie squeezed my hand and gave me an encouraging nod. When it was time for the roast, everyone gathered around. My dad called for silence and Lily stepped up with a big grin on her face, holding a microphone. She started off with some light jokes about our parents poking fun at their quirks. Everyone laughed and I felt myself relax a little. It wasn't so bad. She moved on to our younger cousins, making silly jokes about their social media habits. Even I chuckled at a few of those. For a moment, I thought I might have misjudged this whole thing. Then she turned to me. My wife has a creepy hobby project that involves yarn tied to pictures like a crime detective, and now that there is a mystery cheating incident in our neighborhood she is trying to crack the case, and I'm one of the potential suspects. Okay, this sounds insane, but I swear my wife is totally normal otherwise, which makes this so strange to me. For context, we're both in our later 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she eats up true crime about spouses killing their cheating partners too. She just says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated in her words. Well, a couple months back we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple in the neighborhood divorced because the husband cheated. No, there wasn't a murder or anything like that, but she became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or cookout, she would bring it up hoping there would be any new information. A month later, I stumbled on the board in her home office. I was doing some cleaning and I found a massive bulletin board facing away leaned up against the wall. Curiosity got the better of me and I turned it around to find a literal effing conspiracy board of all our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting each other like the fucking Pepe Sylvia meme. I was totally confused and asked what this was, and she told me it was a hobby she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all the images on Facebook or some social media and printed them out and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane and she said maybe if I was doing it as a man, but she is just having harmless fun as a hobby and she wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors, she just likes feeling like a detective. She told me to view it like a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out but let it go, or tried. I thought about it a lot. Well, every now and then I admit to checking the board when cleaning, but just a couple days ago I looked to see that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I'm casual friends with. I asked her why she would add me if she thought I was cheating, and she said that was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said if it makes me feel better she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. Well, I got pissed and kind of lost my temper about it. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage will be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. Sorry for the long post, I am starting to feel bad and it hit me more than usual this morning. Should I apologize to her? And before you ask, no, I don't suspect her of cheating. Honestly, I wish she was, because it would at least make more sense than this. Update. Jesus Christ. Firstly, appreciate all of the concern and NTAs. It gave me the courage to approach her and tell her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Literally 2 days later. 2 days later. Shit hits the fan. Our happily married next door neighbor finds a woman's bra under the bed that does not belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, which she still didn't trash like she promised, and of course the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there and I swore it wasn't there last time I saw the board. So either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point, or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it and he said no, he would never. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said one day while you were at work his wife asked her to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was, so yes. I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the bra and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said don't worry. He still had the bra and I looked at it. It was my wife's, but one I knew she almost never wore because it was from a lingerie set I bought her one Christmas she said was uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife and ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the bra and asked her what was going on. She played stupid but I told her to cut the BS. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there, either way she was in trouble. She confessed to planting the bra and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of ruining just our marriage she ruined our neighbors and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. I even showed the Reddit post which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated with her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I am barely speaking to my wife and it is only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. I seriously need advice.
My daughter cut ties after I asked her to forgive her stepsister for stealing her boyfriend. Now she's pregnant and I feel excluded from her life. I, 54 female, have one daughter, Ella, 28 female, with my ex Dylan, 57 male. Dylan and I amicably divorced when Ella was only 4 years old. A few years later, I married my now husband, Jack, 55 male. He was a single dad of 2 kids, Jason, 25 male and Sophie, 27 female. Jack and I also have a daughter, Bella, 17 female. This is about Sophie and Ella. I always thought since they were closer in age, they would get along really well, and I was right. They were like best friends and we were really happy in our blended family. When Ella was in college, she met this guy, Brian, 30 male, at a cafe where she worked. They started dating. I was happy for Ella. Brian proposed to Ella in front of our whole family and it was very romantic. Everything was fine until one day Ella came to our house screaming at Sophie. She claimed that Sophie had been sleeping with Brian. I told her she must be joking. Sophie would never do that to her. There was a lot of screaming until Sophie finally said that she and Brian were in love. This caused more commotion. We did have an extremely hard conversation with Sophie. She showed her remorse and was very guilty. We tried to talk to Ella, saying that Sophie was sad and maybe she should forgive her, but Ella was having none of it. She went on to more screaming and bashing all of us, saying that we were abandoning her and picking Sophie. That is not the case. I tried to make it as peaceful as possible, but Ella didn't want that. When Ella and Brian broke up, he started dating Sophie. They got engaged within a year. Sophie wanted Ella to be her bridesmaid, but Ella just said, "Over my dead body." I thought it was really cruel of her to say that, and she was being petty by holding on to the past anger. Needless to say, she didn't come to the wedding, rather, she left the city to live with her father. She didn't contact us much except for Bella. I thought she might need some time to cool off, but I was hurt that she kept us out of her life. We only got some insights from Bella and Jason. She only sends me cards on my birthday, but hardly ever speaks to me. I think it was unfair. Anyway, one day she came to our place. Sophie and Brian were also there. She gave us an invitation card to her wedding with someone named Rye. I don't know much about him. She didn't even include us in the wedding party, plus the venue was a 4-hour drive and the hotels in that area are expensive. We did agree to go, but at the last moment, Jack got sick and I had to cancel. When I told her the reason I could not come to her wedding, she told me not to bother. She made the right choice by not including me in her wedding. She knew I was a bad mom. It really bothered me. I always wanted to be by her side, but the place and time she was getting married were not compatible for us. That was 2 years ago. She never contacted us again. Then, a few weeks ago, my daughter Bella showed me a post on Instagram that Ella was pregnant. She posed with her stepmother with a caption like, "She will be a good grandmother." I was furious. How can she forget her whole family here? So I called her from Bella's phone and wanted an explanation. She replied that, since I never bothered to be at her wedding, I don't deserve to be in her kid's life. She said, it is not just her wedding. She claims I have never been supportive of her, that I do not care about her. She went on to blabbing that she never felt like she had my support even when she got cheated on and I chose my stepdaughter over her. I told her it was not fair for her to hold that against me till now because it was 6 years ago. She has moved on and Sophie has moved on as well. She is being petty by holding on to something that happened years ago. So did I do anything wrong? Relevant comments. Zestiowski, yes, you did everything wrong, but at least you're consistent. But I don't think you need to worry about Ella because there's nothing you can do or are willing to do to fix your relationship with her. So focus on your lovely stepdaughter and stepson because that's your family now. Just in case you are wondering though, I have a scenario for you. If it had been reversed and it was Ella who lied and slept with Sophie's boyfriend, let's call him Brian, but she was very sad, would you have told Sophie to suck it up and forgive her? Would she have? Not sure that's even valid since someone who sleeps with her sister's boyfriend and lies about it is capable of feeling hurt or betrayal, but it's how you view and value each of them here that I'm wondering. Ice Queen 98,547. Get a grip, lady. You have lost your daughter due to your own chain of actions and inactions. Unless you do some seriously genuine holy shit, I made a bunch of shitty decisions and good God, I'm sorry actions, you will never have a chance at redemption. Your stepdaughter is in the wrong. You are in the wrong. Either listen to the comments and make a change or live with the consequences of your selfish behavior. 4 hours is not that far to drive to save a relationship. Geez, you suck. D. Kuno, you are the a whole big time. At every turn, you put Ella down. You don't get to decide that Ella should forgive Sophie and Brian. You don't get to decide to not go to Ella's wedding and still expect things to be okay. You don't get to expect a relationship with Ella's child or any future children she has when all you've ever done is tear her down. Ella had an entire future planned out at one point, and it all blew up in her face because her ex and stepsister betrayed her, and you couldn't even find it in yourself to comfort her. My family denied me the chance to be happy for the first time in my life, none of them knows this will be the last time they see me. The circumstances of my birth were complicated. I broke up 2 marriages, and my family has never been shy about how they feel about me for that. Only one of my brothers has gotten drunk enough to tell me to my face that he resents me for existing, but I know it exists within all of them, at least in some way. I'm much younger than all my siblings, and there was so much that happened out of our hands that I made excuses, but my whole life, I've never quite felt part of the family. As a child, I told myself we'd make up for lost time once I got older, and we could talk as equals. Now, at 23, I see glimpses of the life I wished I'd have, but in the end, I'm always too much trouble to be included. No one talks to me, and I hear everything from my father. I had to find out my niece was in a car accident from him. I had to find out my other niece had a miscarriage from him. I had to find out my oldest brother had a brain tumor haphazardly on a phone call with my father, which he didn't even know I was unaware of. I've known for a while I'm the only one trying, but for the sake of my dreams, I've given every opportunity for them to let me in, but I just can't do it anymore. I have a psychiatric service dog who aids me with CPTSD. He is the single greatest thing to happen to me. Not only did he save my life from myself, but he has made life livable. He can tell when I'm panicking, and he knows pressure therapy to help me through an attack. He stops me from hurting myself in meltdowns, sits with me until the only noise I can hear anymore is his snoring on my lap. He allows me to go grocery shopping by myself. He is my soulmate, and anyone who knows me knows how important he is to me. My dating life isn't thriving, so I took a shot in the dark and asked my niece if she minded if I brought my service dog as my +1 for her wedding at the end of this month. I have to fly across the country to go, so I will be bringing him anyway since I cannot fly alone. I figured it couldn't hurt to see if he could not have to stay in the hotel all night. I do not technically need him for the event, since I'll know every guest, and I will be drinking pretty heavily to cope, but getting to spoil him with a bow tie, dancing, and steak sounded like the perfect reward for helping me on my flight. Several times, I emphasized that I understood it was an odd request, and she could say no if she wanted. She was emphatic that he could come. She said even if I found a date, he could come. I was elated. For once, I felt seen, I felt cared about, I felt valued. And then I got a call from my dad. No one wanted to make things awkward, but the mother of the bride was not okay with a dog being at the venue. I explained that he is a trained service animal and will not impede the ceremony in any way, and I'd of course remove him if he did. Still, he said they didn't like it. I was so tired of hearing everyone else's words through my father. He won't be around forever, and sooner or later, they will have to start talking to me. I had one request: let the bride tell me. When I asked her, she said yes, and until she told me she changed her mind, I was under the assumption he could go. Well, I never heard back. My dad kept dropping hints when I called him, but I told him what my expectations were. When I RSVP'd, I put my dog as my +1 on the response to let them know I wasn't backing down this time. At this point, I didn't even care if she said he couldn't go, I just wanted to hear it from her. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my father. Not even a text, an effing email explaining that my niece didn't want to be the bad guy, but my dog was not welcome at the wedding. He said he was sorry, but he could still come with me to the hotel if I wanted. Something inside me broke, I think. I realized this is truly a helpless case. They are never going to respect me the way I crave them to. To this day, not one of our conversations has been started by them. I always initiate, and now, the one time I request direct contact, I get an email. Family means everything to me. Over the last few years, I've redefined what a family can be, and if right now, my family needs to be a very damaged orphan and their service animal, I'm grateful I have that much. So, I'm going to the wedding, and then I'm never going to talk to any of them again. And the sad part is, I didn't even think they're going to notice. Update 1. First, thank you to everyone for the kind words and all the advice. It sincerely means so much that so many people care. I want to address all the questions about why I want to go to this wedding at all. There are plenty of practical reasons that I can name, but the truth is, I need to go for my own closure. I have a strange relationship with death and loss. My mother passed when I was 5, and my family split up right after. I've lost several caregivers to serious diseases, grieving their death as they lived. I've learned how to navigate my grieving process. If I don't go to this wedding, I will regret it. Not only is it my last chance to see my childhood family all together in one place, but if I don't go, I show them they can bully me. I do not want to make a spectacle of my trauma with them, but that does not mean I have to walk away with my tail between my knees. I'm not scared of them. My relationship is non-existent, but I did see my siblings, cousins, nieces, and nephews fairly regularly. When I was a kid, they intimidated and bullied me into silence, but I'm not a child anymore. I lived with these people. I can manage one night, if for no other reason than to prove they cannot control me. So, I went to the wedding. It went about how I expected it to go, though one can never be ready for a spontaneous conga line. Sadly, there was no secret last-minute invite, nor any secret plot of which the bride was unaware. She felt bad saying no, so she lied, and she didn't want to tell me that, and she still didn't, even at the wedding. No one really said much at all, in fact. The mother of the bride did not speak to me at all. My brother tiptoed around the subject until the end of the night. To his credit, he did apologize, for all the dog stuff, as he said goodbye. Strangely, the apology didn't make me feel much better. There was no big confrontation either, mainly because no one cared to listen to me if I tried. As the reception began, part of me wondered how much I was going to miss the people, the environment, the vibe, really. Truthfully, I surprised myself with how ready I was to leave. Goodbye was short and bittersweet. The venue was pretty, and the drinks were free, so I made the best of my night, but I got what I needed out of it, I think. Getting home tonight felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I know more than ever that I need to do this, and what I once saw as cutting my family in half, I can now see as clearing space for new family, one that cares. Thank you for all your kind words and all the support for my dog. Update 2. Up posting in r/poem 2 months after her original post. You don't love me. You love an idea of me you fabricated in your mind when I was a child. I'm no longer a child. I'm far from perfect, but I'm growing, I'm glowing, and I'm grieving the reality that none of you will ever know the person I become. You call it love, but my scars disagree. You hate my hair, my style, my beliefs, you hate me. And the saddest part is, I don't even think you know you do.
I think my ex-fiancé has been stalking me for the past 7 years and tried to get my wife to cheat on me. For context, my ex-fiancé, Jess, 31F, and I, 31M, started dating during our sophomore year of college. We met through mutual friends and connected instantly. She was charming and outgoing, making friends everywhere she went. I am more shy and nerdy, but I enjoyed going to parties with her. We got engaged on our graduation day as both our families were attending. I got a job at a big tech company right after college, and Jess moved in with me while looking for jobs. That is when the relationship started going downhill. Jess was an art major and had trouble finding a stable job. She did a bunch of freelance work and mostly worked from home. I was overwhelmed with work. She always wanted to go out to bars and clubs, while I wanted to rest in the evening after working 10 to 12 hours. I was okay with her going out with friends alone, and I would sometimes tag along on the weekends. It bothered me that she was still in her party girl phase. She complained that I was becoming boring and should enjoy my early 20s before we settled down. I was also not happy with the friends she hung out with, as there was a lot of drinking and illicit substance use. Even when I went out with her friends, she would be extremely flirty with guys in her friend group. Her excuse was always that she gets flirty when she is drunk or that she was just joking. I had enough and decided to call off the engagement after 2 years, as we were just different people at that point. The breakup was messy, and she kept trying to get back with me for almost a year. There were some instances where Jess may not have acted in her best judgment, and I blocked her from all my social media. I did not want to deal with the drama and wanted to move on. I also got a transfer to another town around that time and never heard from Jess again. This is when I started dating my wife, Olivia, 30F. My wife was the exact opposite of Jess. She was very soft-spoken and a homebody like me. She knew I was engaged before. We dated for 3 years and have been happily married for 2 years now. One of the things I never changed after I got married was my Thursday nights. 3 of my closest college friends are now scattered across the country, and we generally play a video game together on Thursday evenings, a tradition since our college days. Olivia has often complained that she gets bored during that time. About 6 months ago, Olivia told me she received a Facebook invite for a group where they had painting and wine nights on Thursdays. It was mostly 8 to 10 women who got together at someone's house and spent the evening painting, drinking wine, and gossiping. According to Olivia, it was just a few housewives and divorcees, and they welcomed her. One of the women's names was Jess, but I did not think much of it. 2 weeks ago, Olivia told me it was Jess's birthday, and they wanted to have a ladies' night at a club. Olivia hates loud music, but Jess convinced her to come for dinner and some drinks. On that night, I got a call from Olivia at 10 p.m. asking if I could come and pick her up. I could tell something was wrong and immediately left to pick her up. I went to the bar and went in to pick up Olivia. I was shocked when I realized that her friend Jess was my ex-fiancée. She also looked surprised to see me there. I was polite and said hello to everyone, but Olivia wanted to leave as soon as possible. After we got in the car, I told Olivia that Jess was my ex-fiancée, whom I had not seen for almost 7 years. Olivia was shocked to hear it and did not know about it. It was crazy since I did not even know Jess lived in the same city as us. Olivia told me Jess was the one who had started the painting group. She had divorced her husband 2 years ago and moved to our city for a fresh start. The reason why she called me was because she was getting uncomfortable with the situation at the bar. Since Jess and one of the other women were single, they kept encouraging guys hitting on them and inviting them over to their table. Jess was trying to get everyone drunk and was asking Olivia to open up and have fun. She was constantly hyping up Olivia to 2 of the guys who bought them a round of drinks. At this point, Olivia excused herself to go to the restroom and called me to pick her up. I am not happy with the situation, but I am also not mad at Olivia. I am just uncomfortable with Olivia hanging out with Jess. I told Olivia the same. Olivia told me that she was never going to put herself in the same situation again with Jess or anyone else. Also, this friends group is the only real social life she has since we both are in a completely new city. She does not want to stop going to her painting nights with her friends. I brought up the thought that Jess could be acting in malice, but Olivia told me she did not think Jess would know I was her husband as Olivia never showed my picture to anyone in the group. She also said that it's been 7 years since we broke up. Jess is a kind person, and I should not judge her based on one night when she was drunk. She still wants to stay friends with Jess. On one hand, I do not want to separate Olivia from her friends. But my gut feeling is telling me something is off in this situation. Besides, it feels weird to have my ex be friends with my wife. Am I overreacting to want Olivia to stop being friends with Jess because of my gut feeling? Update 1. I posted about how my ex-fiancé tried to get my wife to cheat on me 3 months ago. Things were good since then, but last week has been crazy, and I wish my wife were not as naive to let Jess back into our lives. I really need help on what I can do at this point. For reference, I broke up with my ex-fiancé 7 years ago, and have been together with my wife for 5 years, married for 2. After the night of Jess's birthday, where she tried to get my wife drunk and flirt with strangers, I had a long conversation with my wife. I laid down why I was uncomfortable with her hanging out with Jess. My wife agreed with most of what I said, but she feels that enough time has passed now where we can let things go. She also talked to Jess and Jess told her that she had no idea about me and that it's just one happy coincidence. Jess also insisted to my wife that she moved on with her life after our breakup, found love, and unfortunately, the marriage did not last. She suggested that we all go out for dinner together and clear out the issues. Jess also insisted that she was just having fun at the bar and apologized to my wife if her drunk behavior made her uncomfortable. My wife asked me if I would be okay with their friendship as she has not found a social group in the new town for a long time, and Jess seems like a changed person. She also told me that she would only meet these women during her art night and not go out on girls' nights or trips. I felt that as long as Olivia was comfortable, I should not have any reason to be worried. We also had dinner with Jess once, and Jess was very friendly. She told me about what happened in her marriage and how she is on her healing journey right now. She also apologized to me for her behavior during our last few months together. Jess now owns a business and works as a freelance artist and graphic designer. I was gracious, as we were just 23, and I harbored no ill feelings. My wife also started hosting art night at our place once a month or so, and I had to move to my office for my game nights. Last week, after the art night, Jess and another lady stayed back, and we were all drinking wine and chatting. The other lady was asking questions about Jess and me. Jess told her that it was old history and that I went no contact with her for 4 years. That was why she had no idea about Olivia. Olivia looked at me and asked Jess, "You mean 7 years ago, right?" Jess said no, that was when we broke up. However, she claimed we met every time I came back to my hometown. I thought she was drunk, so I corrected her again, saying it was 7 years ago, and she was misremembering things. Jess said maybe, and we moved on. The next day, Jess sent a bunch of photos to my wife of me and Jess hanging out. They were just innocent photos of us having dinner, at a music festival, working out together, etc. The weirdest part was that I had a few tattoos on my body that I got only after I broke up with Jess. I also don't remember ever owning the clothes that I was wearing in some of the photos. They were even timestamped 4 years ago, Christmas 2019. Olivia freaked out because we started dating in the summer of 2019. I did make a trip alone to my hometown at Christmas 2019. However, I never met Jess. She started asking me why I did not tell her about meeting Jess. I tried to tell her that these things never happened, but she does not believe me. She also called Jess, and Jess told her that we met because I was back in town. However, she claimed we were just platonic at that point and it was not what my wife was thinking. I confronted Jess, and she told me that I was stupid not to tell Olivia about meeting her and also not telling her about Olivia. She says that I told her I was still single. Olivia is very angry at me. She is not believing a word I am saying. I keep telling her that I have not seen Jess for 7 years. Olivia says she does not mind me meeting her, but I should have told her as we were together. I volunteered to show her all my phone records during that time, but they only go back 3 years on my carrier. I am confused about how those photos can even exist when I never met her. They are definitely photos from when I was with Olivia, as I look more muscular in these pictures and also have tattoos that I did not have back then. I even told her she can call my friends and family and ask them about the trip, but she says that she has all the photos of my trip, and my friends and family will cover for me. Can someone please help me understand what I can do in this case? I need to convince Olivia that this is all false, but she is just angry at me and giving me the silent treatment. I swear that I did not meet Jess during that trip and am caught up in this mess without my fault. Update 2. I want to thank all of you for extending support and help. This has been a horrible week that just kept getting worse. I do not blame my wife for believing Jess. Jess seemed to be a changed person from the girl I broke up with 7 years ago. I felt bad about her being in an abusive marriage for almost 3 years with a narcissistic husband. She got her life back together, was doing great with her work, and also started her own business. She had me rooting for her too, and I was proud of her journey. I could see why my wife liked her. After Jess sent photos to my wife, I tried everything possible to prove that the pictures were fake. I showed them to 3 acquaintances who told me that they could help me. None of them were able to find any inconsistencies with the photos. I also called my parents and my friend who I met during that trip. My mom saw the photo and recognized that the gym photo was taken at the YMCA gym where my parents go. She remembered that I used their guest passes during that visit. My friend also identified the park where the music festival photo was taken. He confirmed that we had gone there during my visit for a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Things were just getting really confusing as to how photos exist between Jess and me at these venues. Jess, on the other hand, was comforting my wife, telling her she did not imply anything when she sent the photos. She said that she was married at that time, and we just ran into each other a couple of times during that visit. Jess was telling my wife not to overthink the photos and that I must have forgotten that we ran into each other. What calmed my wife down a bit was my mom talking to her and telling her that in no world would I hang out with Jess after all the stuff that happened during our breakup. Things got really messy, and there was a reason why she was blocked across everything. My wife agreed with her and told me to just let it go. However, it was just a horrible feeling as I did not have any real proof that this was fake, and I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop at any time. I finally caught a huge break last night. My wife decided not to go to her painting night with Jess and friends and told me she just wanted to be left alone and read. I wanted to sit with her, but she told me to go and play with my friends as she wanted some time alone. During our gaming session, I told my 3 closest friends what happened and how there are photos of me and Jess at locations that I actually visited during that trip. The session turned into them bashing Jess from old stories and how manipulative she is. After our gaming session was over, my friend Jim called me on the phone and told me he wanted to talk about something important regarding Jess. He asked me if I was alone, as he did not want Olivia to listen in. I told him I needed to go to a different room. I put my phone on speaker and went into our bedroom where Olivia was sitting and prompted her to stay quiet. Jim told me that he has been in contact with Jess for the past 3 years. He said that she was still married but was planning to leave her husband. They knew each other because Jess was my girlfriend all through college. The initial conversations were just catching up and Jess complaining about her husband. He told me Jess inquired about me a few times as she had learned I got engaged to Olivia around that time. He said that they had been talking for a while now. Jess also told him about the coincidence that Olivia was in her painting group and how she met me a few months ago when I went to pick up Olivia. She told Jim that Olivia came to her birthday and was heavily drinking and flirting with guys. She even sent him a few pictures. There were a few with Jess and Olivia together, and then Olivia hugging and kissing a guy on his cheeks. I asked him to forward me the photos, and he sent them to me on Discord. Jess told him that I am still the same insecure guy and must be tracking Olivia as I showed up at the bar at 10 p.m. like a parent to pick Olivia up. Jess did not know that Olivia had called me from the restroom to pick her up. Jess made a joke to Jim about how ironic it is that I broke up with her because she loved to party, and now I'm married to a party girl. I asked Jim why he did not share those pictures with me before. He said that he did not want to stir the pot in my marriage without knowing all the details. I was really mad at Jim at this point and asked him what else he had told Jess about me. He said not a lot, and they barely talked about me. However, Jess was obsessed with Olivia and would badmouth her a lot. So, Jim might have told her a bit about Olivia, like what she does, where she works, etc. I asked Jim if he ever told Jess about our game nights, and he said he had and mentioned how Olivia complains about being bored. I told Jim not to tell Jess about our conversation. Jim asked me not to tell anyone that he and Jess were in contact. He said that his wife might get the wrong idea and that he just wanted to reach out because things seemed to be getting really weird in my life. Olivia was listening to everything and staring in disbelief at the photos Jim shared. As soon as I hung up the phone, she started explaining to me that these were the same guys Jess called to their table and who were buying them drinks. However, she never even stood next to them, let alone hugged or kissed them. She also pointed out that her Apple Watch in the photo was on her wrong wrist. She was also spooked out that Jess knew about her for almost 3 years, and there was no way she did not recognize her when she joined the painting group. Olivia was also pissed at Jim for talking to Jess and backstabbing me for so many years. She pointed out that Jim was missing for one day when he and his family visited us last year. Jim was gone for the entire day and came home late at night because he had to work from his office in our city. 15 minutes after our conversation, Jess messaged my wife and told her that they missed her at the painting night, and she would see her next week. Her level of deceit really gave us chills, and Olivia was really worried. Olivia wants to go no contact with Jess, but I am worried that it may not be enough. I also still don't know how Jess knows about what I did when I visited my parents in 2019 and all the locations I went to. I also don't know who else Jess is talking to and sending Olivia's fake photos to show her in a bad light. It's really unnerving, and I am just thinking about how I should confront Jess and make sure she never bothers us again. Thanks again for all the help from the community. Your messages really helped me keep my sanity during this rough week. I ditched my girlfriend in a restaurant on her birthday because my mom had a medical emergency, so she told our friends how messed up that was. Now they want her to ditch our relationship. So I, 22M, have been dating my girlfriend Susan, 21F, for a year now, and things have usually been great between us since we have good communication. I'm posting this 2 days after her birthday, which is also when the incident happened. I'd like to say that I'm very romantic, and my girlfriend can vouch for that. For her birthday, I'd planned a whole day of her favorite activities, along with some extras, like taking her to the movies, going out to Red Lobster despite me not enjoying seafood at all, and some more. This is the part where my mother Claudia, 42F, comes into play. Due to medical issues, she's prone to having sudden epileptic episodes with no prior warning, so my stepdad Robert, 52M, and I have always been on the lookout and wary of this, and we are in contact at least once a day. I've grown close to him over the years and sometimes even call him dad. Now, my girlfriend is very well aware of this, and I've warned her since day one. This never bothered her, and she's always been supportive of me and my father, although my mom's episodes have gotten in the way of our hangouts a couple of times before. We were out at Red Lobster, midway through our meal when I got a call. I picked up the phone since it was my stepdad. I might be the jerk here because I just dropped everything and took off running. As you can expect, my mother had an episode, and my dad told me to come over. By the time I arrived, my stepdad told me that things were under control, and that it was just a scare because she suddenly felt dizzy, lightheaded, and her head started to hurt. I thought that'd be the end of it, but it turned out to be real, as she started to have a seizure in the living room and we had to rush her to the doctor. It took a good 30 minutes for her to stabilize, and I called my girlfriend to let her know that my mom was okay and that if she wanted, we could resume our date. She told me that she didn't want to anymore, and that I was a massive jerk for leaving her like that and ruining her special day, which she's told her friends, who've sent me messages telling me how much of a jerk I am. I'm lost. What was I supposed to do? Commenter. You're the jerk. First of all, does your mother have epileptic seizures without warning, or does she get dizzy, lightheaded, and have a headache before having a seizure? This is more out of curiosity than anything else, about the inconsistency. Second, she's a grown woman with epilepsy. She doesn't need you to drop what you're doing and rush to her location when she has a seizure. She needs to get her seizures under control with the help of her doctor. If her husband is present, he can handle the aftermath and get her medical attention. 2 people aren't required. You can still be involved and helpful, but surely when it's an important day and you're occupied, her husband can handle things. Third, you rushed out of your girlfriend's birthday dinner without telling her why or making sure she had cash or a ride home, to tend to someone who did not really need your help. That's not prioritizing your mom's medical needs, that's blowing your girlfriend's needs out of the water. Ops response. She usually has seizures without warning, and only a few times with warning. I can count on one hand the number of times she's given us some kind of warning about her episodes, this being the 4th time. Her husband cannot lift anything due to a work-related injury before meeting my mom, and not to be mean, but she leans a bit on the heavier side. I didn't leave my girlfriend completely stranded, as I had given her money earlier as part of a birthday gift, money which I intend to pay back, of course. Thank you, I appreciate you letting me know my faults and what I did wrong. Commenter. What about calling an ambulance? Or is this in the USA? Ops response. I've asked my father about that before, why not the ambulance? He says he doesn't really know, it's just his first instinct to call me. We do indeed live in the USA. Update 1. Hello again, a lot has happened in the past few days, and I don't even know where to start or where my head is at right now. It just feels surreal. Many of you will be displeased to hear this, but my girlfriend and I are still together. Apologies to those who commented but didn't get a reply. I did read each and every comment and took them to heart, even the ones that were rough around the edges. It was eye-opening, to say the least. It made me realize a lot. The same day as the original post, I messaged my girlfriend to talk with her. She told me she was at her parents' house, so I went over, and we had a talk. I apologized for leaving so abruptly without making sure she was okay, but I didn't know any better since that's how I was raised and what I was taught. She said she understood and apologized for slandering me with her friends, but she only wanted her opinion validated. Okay, no biggie. I asked her if she ever felt second in line whenever it came to my mother, and she said yes. This made me open my eyes more and more to the situation at hand, just like the comments were pointing out. I admit I cried a bit, and my girlfriend held me and consoled me. I went to sleep on it, and the next morning, I decided to confront my parents. My girlfriend insisted on tagging along but understood when I told her this was something I had to do on my own. I arrived at my parents' place, and my mom greeted me like nothing happened. She felt something was off when I didn't reply, and I told her to sit down and talk with me. She looked really worried. I was blunt and outright asked if she was really sick because the more I thought about it, or rather the more I recalled the comments calling me out and her behavior, the odder it looked. Did she really have seizures? If she has seizures, why does she have her husband call me instead of an ambulance? I pointed out how, if those were real seizures, like I've read online, she'd be either aggressive towards us or have no idea who she is, where she is, or why. As a few Redditors suspected, she doesn't have seizures. It turned out to be a controlling tactic on her part to keep me around and on a short leash. It was one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced, and it genuinely made me nauseous. My whole life was built on a lie. You can imagine the turmoil, anger, sadness, shock, and disappointment all hitting me at once. And then, my stepfather walked in. I only asked him once if he was part of this, and he couldn't look me in the eye. Right then and there, I knew that I had no family anymore, so I left. On my way to work, I started getting bombarded with calls and texts from her, but I simply blocked her and ignored her. So here's where I'm sitting right now. My sister accidentally sent the wrong photos to the family group chat. Now everyone knows that both sisters are into sharing their husbands with each other and I can't bleach my eyes. For a bit of backstory, my sisters have been best friends forever. They were best friends in childhood, best friends in public school, and my oldest sister, Kat, even waited a year for my younger sister, Sherry, to finish high school so they could go to college at the same time. They went through college and ended up meeting two guys they would both marry shortly after, about a month apart. Kat has one kid, and Sherry has two. Anyway, they live in the same town and are still best friends. Sherry is a stay-at-home mom, while Kat works as an accountant. Both husbands work in office positions. Our family, immediate and extended, is big on email since everyone sends pictures of various things to each other, kids, vacations, etc. Sherry loves to send pictures of her kids to the family and includes all of us in the family group for mass emails. So, yesterday, she sent out a mass email titled, "Great evening, can't wait to do it again," with a folder attachment containing pictures. Not gonna lie, kids bore me, so I ignored it. About 10 minutes later, I got a text from a cousin of mine who is part of my social circle that simply said, "Holy effing crap." I asked what, and he said, "Did you look at Sherry's email?" I said no, and he told me to go look ASAP. Wow. So, Sherry and Kat are swingers with their respective husbands. They are also into group smashing. They are also into pictures. Lots of them. I looked, I am messed up, I know, but morbid fascination took hold. They share husbands, they have 3 ways with their husbands, and they really like all forms of under the sheets intimacy. It was incredibly graphic. So, after the shock of this, I then realized Sherry sent this to our entire family. We are having Christmas dinner on Saturday. We do it earlier since it is easier on everyone's schedules. I have talked to no one except my cousin. It has been deathly quiet among our family, and I really don't want to be there Saturday. How do I handle this? What do I say to my sisters or my parents? I think booze will be heavily consumed on Saturday. Update 1. Okay, so, I replied to Sherry, giving her a heads up about what was emailed, as many of you guys suggested, so they wouldn't be caught totally off guard. She never responded. I imagine she was in panic mode all day Friday, probably debating whether to come. Saturday rolls around, and I drive to my aunt and uncle's where it is being held. I got there before Sherry and Kat and was immediately pulled aside by my dad. He said not a word about it, it never happened. If Uncle Mark got belligerent, we were supposed to remind him of how he's ruined every relationship he's ever been in by cheating. An hour later, Sherry and brother-in-law number 1 came in with their kids. Everyone greeted them, hugged, etc. She came up to me with a look that said, "Do you hate me?" That kind of broke my heart. I hugged her, said I loved her no matter what, and left it at that. Kat, their son, and brother-in-law number 2 came in 30 minutes later, and we did the hug and greet. The rest of the dinner was normal, with no outrageous comedy lines or outbursts. That being said, I wanted to talk to one of them in private, because, after talking on here, I had questions. So last night, after the meal, those of us in the younger crew went to a bar not far down the road, while the older family watched the kids for the evening. All 4 of them hit the booze pretty fast, and I don't blame them. I am sure they had been waiting for the outrage all evening. Eventually, Kat and I ended up alone. We made small talk, and I was thinking about the best way to approach it. She finally just blurted out, "Just get on with it." I nervously laughed, and then asked how long they had been doing that. She said since college. They went to a party with their boyfriends, not their current husbands, and after drinking and taking X, they ended up all 4 in bed together. That started their new ventures. Later, they ended up trading boyfriends, to try something new. When they met their current husbands, they continued this practice and have been doing so since college. I asked why the pictures. She said they like to look at them to get in the mood. I asked how often they do these events. She said every 2 to 3 months, just something that spices it up for them. I asked if they do it with others, and she said no way. They're only comfortable with the 4 of them because they all have feelings for each other. I turned my head a bit at that, and she explained that she loves her husband more than anything, but after being with Sherry's husband on that basis for nearly 7 years, she couldn't help but have feelings for him. She said Sherry feels the same for her husband. She said her connection with Sherry has always stayed incredibly strong, and they have never felt jealousy. She said it makes the 4 of them closer as best friends. She told me that if either of their husbands went outside of the 4 of them, they'd cut their manhood off. My sweet sisters discussing cutting off the sacred sword was a pretty big shock, though it was in jest. I asked if they ever get with the other husband without their sister or their own husband. She said when they were younger they would, but work and life now restrict how often they can, and for the last few years, the interactions have always involved all 4 of them. So, it came down to the final big question, one that I had been working up the nerve to ask. Do you and Sherry ever do anything? She looked at me for a while, probably deciding if she should answer. She told me they had messed around with each other 4 times, once by themselves before they met their husbands and 3 times since. She said it takes being extremely in the mood and also depraved to even consider it, and it hadn't happened in years, but they had in the past, and who knows what the future holds. So, we had a few more drinks, just letting it all settle. Not going to lie, I enjoyed being close enough for her to open up to me. I had never experienced that before. I then asked to make sure they were being smart about it, with birth control and whatnot, and she gave me a "are you stupid" look and said, "Of course." I then hugged her and said, "I still love you. You are still my loving big sister, and I don't think any less of you, Sherry, or your husbands. If you ever want to talk about anything, call me." The rest of the night didn't have anything noteworthy. We went back to the house, and everyone drove home today. Sherry did call me and tell me that since I knew about their intimate lives, I had to tell them about mine. I said, I don't really have anything interesting like that I know of. Who knows what I will discover one day. The only partner I have had for a while is my hand. My intimate life is nowhere near as interesting as theirs. She ended the call with, "Thank you for still loving me," which kind of caught me off guard. Thus, Christmas dinner with the family ended, with no additional drama or fires. Commenter. Not even Batman could get that information out of me.
My friend thinks she's a better parent than us even though she has no kids and tried to outparent my baby in front of me, so I went feral on her. I, 35F, have a friend group of 5 women, including me. We are all the same age, and we have been friends since we were 13. 4 of us, including me, have kids, with my 5-week-old son being the youngest. The 5th friend, who I'll call Emily, doesn't have kids and hasn't really ever been in a relationship that lasted longer than a couple of weeks. Emily works in a daycare center and has been working there for over 10 years. Nowadays, she mainly does admin work but sometimes covers shifts if someone is sick. So, she has a lot of experience with kids, even though she doesn't have any herself. The problem with Emily is that she likes to make it known how good she is with kids. So, whenever we spend time together as a group with our kids, she acts like she knows best when it comes to kids. For example, if a kid is having a tantrum, she will insert herself into the situation instead of letting the mom take care of it. Or if a child is doing something it shouldn't, like eating too much candy, Emily will tell the child, "Don't listen to mommy, Auntie Emily says it's fine." She also does this at bigger gatherings, showing off her superior skills with kids while making us look like we don't know anything. I've talked about this with the other moms, and they find it annoying as well. We thought about saying something, but we agreed that taking care of children is such a big part of Emily's identity that it would really hurt her. On to the problem at hand. A couple of days ago, we were hanging out again. Emily asked if she could hold my son, and I said yes. A little later, the baby started to cry. I went over and tried to take him back. Emily wouldn't let me and kept saying she knows how to do it and tried rocking the baby. I knew my son was hungry, so no amount of rocking was going to stop him from crying. I asked Emily again just to give me the baby, and she again refused. I was getting upset and asked again, and she just kept saying that she knows how to take care of a baby. I said I know, but I need to take my baby. I was about to blow, but she had my son in her arms, so I didn't want to upset her. Suddenly, she tried to take the baby to the other room, but I stopped her and almost forcefully took my son from her. I was seething, and once I had set my son down, I let it all out. I shouted at her that she has no right to keep me from my child and that even with all her experience, she can't go over me when it comes to my child. I also told her that I'm sick of her trying to show off her skills using my child. She was really upset and left shortly after. I don't think anything I said was wrong, but am I wrong for shouting at her? My friends think it's something she needed to hear, but going off on her like that might have been too much. Update 1. Thank you all for your comments. I was happy to see that I wasn't completely out of line with my outburst, but I agree that the way we had been handling the situation wasn't good. We tried contacting Emily right after that incident, but she just messaged our group chat that she was busy and she'd get back to us. I managed to get hold of her after the post and invited her to have coffee at my place on Sunday. We met with one other friend from the group. We thought having all of us there might be too much pressure. My husband took the baby to see my in-laws, so he wasn't there. It was a bit awkward and didn't get better. I started by apologizing for shouting at her but told her that keeping my child from me wasn't acceptable behavior from anyone. I told her that we know she is good with kids and the kids like Auntie Emily very much, but sometimes she oversteps and gets in the way of how we want to parent our children. My friend gave a couple of examples of the situations, but Emily refused to see any problem with her behavior. Emily got really defensive and told us that we are really ungrateful for all the help she has given and she has put so much effort into kids that aren't even hers. I told her that of course we are grateful for the help and all we need is for her to be a bit more mindful in certain situations. She doubled down on nothing being wrong with the way she acts. She also started getting nasty about our parenting and bringing up things that we did wrong. I know myself and my friends sometimes make mistakes, as do all parents, but my friends are great moms who love their kids and would do anything for them. Then she got really angry and told me that I don't deserve my child as I didn't even want him. Background to this was that I was hesitant to keep my child when I found out I was pregnant since I had had some mental health issues and I was really scared that I would get PPD and might not handle taking care of a baby. I'm so happy that I decided to have him, but it was tough back then even with my husband being really supportive. That was the final straw and I kicked her out and told her she will never be allowed around my child. After she left, we called the others and told them what happened. We decided that we would take a step back from Emily for now. Emily has since blocked all of us on everything. One of our other mutual friends told us that Emily has been making Facebook posts about fake friends who don't appreciate her help and advice. She's not naming names, but everyone knows she's talking about us. Most people have seen her in action at get-togethers, so they understand where we're coming from. For now, we are keeping our distance, and maybe if she realizes the problem and apologizes, then we might reconsider.
My wife cheated on me with several men while we were dating in college, and that's how I found out several could mean more than 10. My wife, 44F, and I, 43M, have been married for 20 years. We started dating in high school when I was a junior and she was a senior, and we were long distance for her first 2 years of college while I was in high school and did 1 year at community college. Then we went to college in the same city for a year and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated from college. Our marriage has been pretty great so far, but I initiated a divorce after I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men during the 2 years we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few friends of hers from college to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school, not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college roommate commented that it was crazy that we met in high school, had a few wild years in college, and then ended up together. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up, so I said that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time in college. All of my wife's friends got real quiet, and the rest of the dinner was awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and said I should have an honest conversation about what happened in college. I asked my wife on the way home, and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important that she was honest with me, and again she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college. The next day she came over and admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years of college. She said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think a high school romance would last. I pressed for more details, and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she introduced to me as friends when I came to visit on weekends and 1 guy she was still in contact with. I told her that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could, which I did on January 2nd. Her family and most of my family are telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes. I've stood by my belief that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable no matter when it happened, and the fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, but they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the number of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. Update 1.1. Holy crap, I'm glad I did this with a throwaway because the response here is unexpected. I obviously can't answer every question or comment, but I wanted to provide some details for common questions. The reason I posted this is that my wife and a few friends have been saying it's common to sleep with other folks when you're in a long-distance relationship and that I'm kind of the odd one out for not sleeping around. I felt like I was being gaslit, but I wanted an outside perspective. We live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, so I felt it was a reasonable idea to get some insight before things are finalized. After reading these comments, I see a handful of folks saying it's normal to sleep around during a long-distance relationship, but it seems to be a significant minority. We saw each other a couple of weekends a month during the 2-year college period. I lived about 3 hours away from her college, so it was long distance but not like cross-country. This was not a situation where we went months without seeing each other. The 3 guys I met while she was in college were meetups that happened during parties. The subject of me being her boyfriend didn't really come up, so I honestly don't know if these guys knew anything. The 1 guy we're still in contact with married a mutual friend from college. This is not some guy she secretly messages on the side, it's somebody we've talked to regularly for years. I've talked to him a few times since I learned about my wife. He said he didn't know we were dating at the time and has since blocked my wife on social media. Some folks have asked how the roommates didn't realize at our wedding that the timelines didn't work out. The main reason is that my wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas, then went back to the East Coast to have a big party with friends. The typical reception and sharing details about how we met didn't really happen, so her roommates didn't realize we started dating before college. It sounds like they thought we only dated for the year we were both in the same city, then moved in together. I was open to therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage, but her insistence that this whole thing is common and I'm the one who's out of line is just too much for me. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile is when I started filing paperwork. In the last week, she's gone back to saying she's right and I'm overreacting. This is also why I feel like I'm being gaslit. It seems obvious that this is a major issue, but I've got my wife and others telling me it's normal and I'm overreacting. I'm not getting a paternity test unless my kids want to get one. I don't have any doubts that they are biologically mine, and no test will make them not my kids. I love them more than anything in the world, and my wife's infidelity won't change that even if one or both of them is not biologically mine. They've been my kids for 19 years, and they will be my kids until I stop breathing. Update 1.2. Hey all, I've been reading a bunch of the responses, but things are getting crazy and increasingly unhinged, so I probably won't be checking in more. Here are a few more answers to common questions I've seen. We were definitely exclusively dating at the time. First, dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and being exclusive was kind of the default for most people. Second, we had a long and difficult discussion before she left for college about continuing the relationship long distance. She specifically wanted to stay together and even joked about her dad coming after me if I started sleeping around with girls at my school. Finally, at my senior prom, she was not able to attend and was very upset when I proposed going with a platonic female friend of mine. As a result, I ended up skipping my prom and hanging out with her instead. While we never said the word exclusive, I think the above reasons, combined with the general relationship before she left, are enough to assume exclusivity. Based on some comments here, I followed up with the friend that said I should have an honest conversation. She told me that 10 guys would be on the low end and that her biggest concern was that there was apparently at least one pregnancy scare that I didn't know about. I honestly don't think that really changes much. It's less about the number for me and more about the fact that she seems incapable of recognizing why this was wrong or why I feel betrayed. Thank you all for the helpful responses, even those that disagree with me. I will still be open to therapy if she's willing, but I honestly feel like it would be more about us being successful co-parents and finding closure than saving our marriage. Update 2. I wanted to provide some updates here as my original post got a lot of traction. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college. After talking to my wife in therapy sessions and texting with 2 of her roommates, it's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said they thought the situation was weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had told them that we both had some wild times in college and worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was not intended. One of the guys ended up dating and then marrying one of our mutual friends from college. This is the guy she was in contact with. In the other situations, she initially blamed me in the counseling session, but has now agreed it was bad. When I went to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone, but I wanted to go to a few parties because in high school and community college, I didn't really have parties to go to. She didn't expect me to meet the guys, but they were at the parties and she felt she didn't really have a choice. I still think this is kind of crappy, but it's not as bad as her intentionally parading me in front of the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy has been talking about why I think it's a big deal and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her and it was mostly one-night stands or friends with benefits. Since she didn't view them as romantic relationships, she didn't see the big deal, her words, not mine. My opinion is that we never said that was okay, and she actively prevented me from doing the same. After digging into this across 2 sessions and my wife talking to some friends, she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust and relationship. This shared understanding has helped us talk about this situation more honestly and helped us get from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now, here's why I'm 100% set on divorce. 2 things came up that make me want to leave the marriage. First, about 10 years ago we went through a really rough patch and had an inactive bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our bedroom life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up a bit. Apparently, she had been hung up on some bedroom experiences that happened in college, that she is not comfortable talking about, and wanted me to try them, but when I did, it made her feel awkward and guilty that it made her think of other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless, but they're still impacting our marriage tells me they meant more than she wants to say. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She says she has never slept with anybody, but it got as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was the absolute deal breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce. We told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old, who is in college, asked me if I cheated on my wife while she was away at college. My wife got a little shaken up, but admitted to the kids that she's the one who cheated. We have agreed to not share any additional details with the kids. I reinforced that both of us will be there for the kids and that we are in therapy to help make sure we handle this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids that if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about it, I would fully support it. We've started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a crappy couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that my last post blew up because it both validated some of my feelings and motivated me to go to counseling with my wife. Update 3. My wife and I have completed our divorce, and everything is official. We had an uncontested, amicable divorce with minimal disagreements. Our lawyers worked together to create the plan through mediation, and a judge signed off on it a few weeks ago. In the end, the actual divorce process was pretty straightforward. The only complication was that our 17-year-old was adamant about my having custody because their relationship with my ex-wife has really fallen apart as a result of this. Initially, my wife dug in her heels and was ready to give up on the uncontested divorce, but my son pretty much told her she could choose between letting him have a break for a few months to process and rebuild, or force him to live with her until he turns 18 and risk never seeing him again. I felt this was a bit harsh, but my wife backed down, and we moved forward with my having primary physical custody until my son's birthday later this year. For my part, I have encouraged my son to be open to fixing things, as the actions my ex took before he was born didn't change the 17 years she cared for and loved him. Fortunately, as the divorce moved forward, he has been spending more time with my ex, and I'm optimistic they will work through this. In the end, we pretty much split our retirement and investments 50-50. For our house, my wife really liked the house and I didn't, so she kept the house and most of the furnishings and took out a mortgage to pay me back half of the equity and half of the estimated replacement value of the furniture. Pretty much all of our other stuff was either easy to split, my car and her car, my music gear and her hobbies, clothing, personal effects, etc., or we just agreed to sell it and split the resulting profit. Things were a bit easier for us because we had already documented most of our valuable items and electronics for an insurance rider we added to our home insurance a few years ago. Things have been going well for me personally. Both of the kids spend most of their time at my place, and we are still very close, which was my biggest fear in the divorce. I have a new house that I really love, and I gave in to the midlife crisis urge and traded in my outdated minivan for a Lexus LC 550. I even had a woman at work, not a close coworker, invite me out on a coffee date. While I was upfront with her that I'm not ready to date just yet, she said she would be happy to take a rain check and would be happy to go out with me when I'm ready. I'm honestly thrilled because she's really smart, has a great sense of humor, and our positions at work are far enough apart that we don't really work directly with each other at all. My ex and I are continuing to go through couples counseling together. We have transitioned into having closure on our marriage and making sure we maintain our relationship enough to be effective co-parents. While these sessions have been great to help me process things and keep things as healthy and positive as possible given the circumstances, it has also reinforced that divorce was the right option. It's clear from some answers in the sessions that my wife immediately started dating once the divorce process started, so whatever love was there was clearly on the way out already. I'm pretty sure the coworker she was just friends with dropped her off at our recent session. The fact that it doesn't even really make me mad is a good sign that I was also probably done with the marriage. In the end, it will take a long time for me to heal from the betrayal, but I feel like I'm making good progress and I can honestly say that the divorce was unquestionably the right decision. I've probably cried more in the last 4 months than I have in the last 20 years, but for the last month or so, I feel genuinely good about myself for the first time in a long time. I'm enjoying having my own life, been busy getting my 17-year-old ready for college in the fall, and looking forward to a coffee date with a smart, funny woman in a month or two. My mother-in-law convinced my wife to convince me to buy their old house so we could live next to them. It's the worst decision I've ever made, and she thinks I don't know about the spare key she has. So, my wife is split 50-50 between having her head deep in her mother's rear and not wanting anything to do with her. It's complicated. My relationship with my mother-in-law was always awkward. She didn't want her precious daughter to leave home and build her own family, so she always tried to shackle my wife as close to her as possible and used every trick up her sleeve to achieve exactly that. From fake illnesses to emotional manipulations to last-second, unnoticed vacations we were forced to go on, my wife, until now, never grasped that what her mother was doing was wrong. Around 6 months ago, my mother-in-law and father-in-law bought a new house, a smaller one, as they didn't need all that space at their old home. At first, I personally wasn't interested in that house, but somehow my mother-in-law convinced my wife to convince me to buy the house from them, so we could buy it cheaply and have one less worry. I was completely against the purchase. It was incredibly close to their new home, like a 30-minute walking distance, and the amount they asked for, that being $450K, was not justified for the state the house was in. Long story short, my wife got extremely upset with me for not wanting the house, and I just gave up and said yes, so yay, we own a house now. For information, we got the keys, documents, and everything is on paper. Nothing is in their name anymore, it's all on us now. For the past few months of us moving in, renovating a bit here and there, all seemed well. They never came to visit, and if anything, we would be the ones to visit them. The house was fine after some work, but there's still a lot to fix. But then I started noticing some strange things regarding the house. Whenever we are gone for more than 8+ hours or a few days and then return to the house, it seems like someone has been inside. I could have sworn some of my stuff was moved. A few times it smelled like gas, as if I left something running in the kitchen, and the sink in one of the bathrooms was wet, even though I always wipe it dry after using it. Even my wife found it odd, and after the gas incident, she was alarmed. So I figured my mother-in-law probably still had a key that we didn't know about and was snooping around. I bought 2 cheap cameras and installed them so I could see the entrance and the living room, as those two are connected. As someone suggested, I also changed out the locks by buying completely new, secure doors and having them changed, as well as installing new window security since all of those were old. 2 days after everything was changed, I got a text from my mother-in-law saying that I'm an evil person trying to destroy everything she loves, and that she wants the house back from us because she isn't tolerating how we are treating her old property. I asked her where this came from all of a sudden, and her answer was, "You're destroying our old home." The door was a precious memento, and we shouldn't have changed it without asking her first. I told her the house was no longer hers and we could do whatever we wanted. I didn't hear back from her until now. She now wants her house back because we're apparently not fit to be homeowners. She is offering us back $430K of the $450K, as they already spent $20K, and wants everything back. I told her to go eat grass and that the home is now ours. I already had the police at my door. Can you imagine what it looked like for me to explain to them that this house was legally mine? They laughed. And the worst? My wife says to just get the old door back. I don't understand my mother-in-law, and I'm okay with that, but I don't get how my wife can be so deep in her BS. If it were up to me, I would go no contact and leave it at that, but my wife is just, well, glued to her. I can't even enjoy marriage anymore. It doesn't feel like her and me, it feels like her, me, and her insane mother. My father-in-law is alright. Just a normal person, most of the time fed up with my mother-in-law's BS too, but he can't be bothered to actually hold her back. I'm stressed, angry, and really disappointed. Advice, please. Up in the comments. Counseling is up next. If that doesn't work, I don't see a long, healthy future either. As heartbreaking as it is for me to type this out, I don't see myself living like this. I don't want to be in confrontation mode all my life just because one person can't let go. I guess, in truth, a part of me has already decided. The entire last year was just strange. I didn't imagine marriage working this way. Since my mother-in-law got her claws back into my wife and moved closer to her, everything changed, and I can feel the shift in behavior. I'm giving myself another year with counseling and a lot of work, but if I don't see actual change or just BS changes from my wife, then I will leave. I'm just glad I got a proper marriage agreement/contract and that I didn't cave on that. I'm not considering children right now. To be completely honest, after last year in general, I don't think a child would be a good idea at all. My wife would just hand it over to her mother. I'm looking up counseling options. The door is in the basement. I could change the locks and reinstall it, but that alone would be too much of a win for her. I will drop the door off at her house. That's a good idea. Update 1. So quite a lot has happened since yesterday. I stopped answering most comments, as I was just taking in everyone's advice, thoughts, and experiences. First, some info again. Some people were concerned that dropping off the door would mean she could copy the keys. Not possible, as both the door and locks were replaced with high security keys. I know a locksmith could still duplicate them, but that would take some time. Some were worried about birth control. Don't worry, I can't even think of bedroom intimacy right now. Regarding security, no, I did not catch my mother-in-law on camera. I installed them in conjunction with the change of the door and locks, and I don't see a point in spending money on more cameras, Ring doorbells, etc. Some asked if my mother-in-law had more children. Nope, single child. I paid the entire $450K. My wife didn't pay for the house, renovations, nothing. She bounces from one job to another, trying to find something fitting. This has always been the case. I don't mind supporting her, but I feel a bit leeched off sometimes. Now to the actual update. I called my father-in-law and asked him if he would meet me for a coffee because I wanted to talk, and bless him, he did exactly that. We sat down, and I asked him to please just listen and not interrupt. I must have talked for close to 2 hours. This man sipped his coffee, listened, sighed, and said the following in short. My mother-in-law's plan was to sell us the house, rebuy it, making us literally homeless, so we couldn't say no to her offer to live with her and her husband. My father-in-law did try to hold my mother-in-law back but failed. He was extremely upset about the police call, upset about only offering $430K back, and upset in general that she's going this far to shackle her daughter. His offer and advice, I should take my mother-in-law's $430K offer. Then we will set up a legally binding contract between my father-in-law and myself. He will give me the $20K plus what I put into renovations, etc., without my mother-in-law knowing, which would bring me close to $500K. He told me to pack it up and just leave after a stern talk with my wife. She won't wake up if it's me versus my mother-in-law as long as one of us is in close proximity. He looked sad and upset. We hugged at the end, and he told me not to be too saddened by all of this. Sometimes we need to make hard decisions, and I would regret it if I didn't do this. There was more talk, obviously, but this is the short and interesting part. Back home, I talked with my wife, in a calm tone and manner. She didn't see any evil from her mother, said her mother needs a lot of attention and love like most elderly ladies, and often she sounds meaner than she actually is, but that she only wants the best for us. Us? No, she only cares what's best for her and her own intentions. We argued a bit back and forth, and my wife is 100% behind her mother. She said I should get some therapy to get out of the obsession I have with demonizing her mother. I stood up, left, and slept at a friend's that night. I offered couples and individual counseling. It was denied. Apparently, I'm the only one that needs special attention, as she called it. And I guess that's exactly what I need, special attention, by myself, for myself. I already messaged my father-in-law. It's not worth it. Thank you everyone. Thank you for taking the time to help out and listen to someone you don't know. I might take this homeless opportunity and money to get out a bit, explore, and breathe freely for once. Op in the comments. Oh, believe me, I told my wife what my mother-in-law was planning. She denied it and said I was so deep in my coup of demonizing her mother that I was the one needing therapy. We have a pretty tight-knit prenup that specifies no assets or property will be split unless children are involved. She gets what is hers and what she owns, which isn't a lot, and I know this sounds harsh, but this house, for example, is now completely mine. I paid for everything, and she didn't contribute a cent. It's all on paper that this is all on me. So as long as no children or pregnancy are involved, everyone keeps what is theirs. Also note, we do not live in the US, so laws, etc., will be different. I'm not abandoning the house, the homeless part was for when everything is over. As of right now, I'm in the house, alone. Trust me, I'm not going to let this go easily. After reading all the comments, I am already skeptical of my father-in-law too. I've got some ideas up my sleeve. I will get my money back, the house is not going to be sold back to them. A good friend of mine, his wife is an attorney, and we're already messaging back and forth. She is hooking me up with people for everything from lawyers to contracts. Believe me, I wasted enough time, resources, and money. I won't do this again. I went from sad to angry to determined. I will get this done properly. Update 2. Hello, it's been 4 months now since I came here to ask for advice. Maybe some of you still remember what it was about. Well, a lot has happened. As you know, my father-in-law offered to repay me behind his wife's back. At first, I thought to just take this offer and move on, but after reading what some of you wrote about how it sounded too good to be true and why I should give in, I refused. I don't want this to get too long, so here is what happened in the past 4 months. I kicked my wife out, and she's now back at her mother's. I still own the house and got all the repairs and changes done. Since then, I've been renting it out. I gave her back her old precious memento door. My ex-mother-in-law got handcuffed and had a nice drive around in the back of a police car after she tried to get physical with the new house tenants, claiming it was her house. Just 2 weeks ago, my ex-wife tried to contact me, saying she can't keep living with her mother, but she doesn't have enough income to live on her own. Not my problem. I have been traveling a lot ever since I got everything sorted out. Went to northern and southern Germany, met tons of nice people, and saw some beautiful remote places. All in all, life after kicking out my then wife has been good. I never realized how shackled my thoughts and actions were while being with her after we moved closer to her parents. I now live in a nice 2.5 room apartment near a small city. I enjoy myself and take everything slowly, focusing on work, myself, and just relaxing for once. You wouldn't believe how happy I am that we never had children together. Thank you. My wife's best friend and her husband want my blessing to get down and dirty with my wife and make me watch. How the hell do I even respond? I, 37M, have known about this for a long time, but when my wife, 35F, was younger, she had a few three-ways with her best friend and her best friend's husband, who was her then boyfriend at the time. This was years before we even met, and she told me early in our relationship to ensure there were no secrets. I've never had a problem with my wife being around her best friend alone since the three-ways didn't involve much girl-on-girl action but were more about sharing her boyfriend. For that reason, I've had trouble throughout our marriage being around both of them. I just struggle to have a normal conversation knowing that this guy has gotten under the sheets with my wife. My wife doesn't think anything of it and is completely comfortable. It's just something she did for a little while, then stopped because she wasn't into it anymore once the taboo thrill wore off. She can even talk about it with them as casually as she talks about a concert they went to. However, she doesn't do this when I'm around because she knows it makes me uncomfortable. Anyway, we were all together last weekend, and her friend got a little drunk and brought it up. My wife quickly shut her down, but the impression I got was that there had been a lengthier conversation leading up to this that I didn't know about. Later on, my wife told me that her friend and her husband had asked if she and I were interested in doing something. They were down for whatever we were comfortable with, but my wife admitted that they really wanted her again with me watching. My wife knows there is no way in hell I would be down for that, and neither would she. My wife stopped doing that with them for a reason, and that was before she got married and had kids. My wife has told me to just forget they said anything, but holy crap, how can I do that now? I tolerated being around them when these incidents were well in the past, but now that they are openly desiring my wife, I don't know if I feel comfortable with her or me being around them. Am I wrong here? How do I navigate this? I don't want to tell my wife to break off her friendship, but I feel something needs to be done. Edit. Thanks for all the comments. I'm glad I'm not blowing this out of proportion and that my response is normal. For context, I want to add that they were together 3 times, and my wife stopped simply because she wasn't into it anymore. She only participated because her friend was bragging about her boyfriend's skill in the bedroom and insisted that she try it. She did, and she found that no amount of skill could overcome the fact that she wasn't very attracted to him. My wife also really isn't into girls. She participated with her friend, but it was a first and last for her, just not her thing. So I really am not worried about her doing anything with them because she had ample opportunity before we met and she passed. Also, a lot of people are criticizing my wife for not telling me about the conversation, but I'm actually fine with that. She said no for both of us, and I'm not angry at her for that. I'm angry and offended at them for trying to make me watch. It feels like one of their kinks is to humiliate me. This guy wants to do it with my wife, the mother of my children, and look me in the face while he does it. Update 1. After I posted, I had a deeper conversation with my wife about her friends and expressed my discomfort about being around people who are lusting after my wife and fantasizing about doing it with her in front of me. She said she understood how I felt but told me that there was absolutely nothing I should be concerned about. To my wife, her friend and her husband are not serious people. They are fun to be around, but that's it. She experimented with them in her early 20s, but she was a different person then. She was very adventurous in the bedroom in college and right after and did a lot of things she'd never think of doing now. She said she's a 35-year-old married mother of 2 with a serious career, and she simply isn't interested in behaving like that anymore. Not to mention that she is happily married and loves me. While I understood all that and I do trust her, I told her that my point still stands, I am just not comfortable around them. My wife then asked if we could talk it out with her friends and if, after that talk, I'm still uncomfortable, then she will agree to whatever I am comfortable with. So I agreed, and we met last night at our house. They both apologized and swore to never bring it up again. But I could tell that neither thought of this as a big deal, and from their tone, it seemed like they thought I was being overly sensitive. So I raised that point, and they conceded that they did think I was being silly. They told me that the time they had with my wife was a very memorable experience and they wanted to experience it again and simply asked if my wife would be interested in participating with me or with my approval. They said that they would have been happy to allow me to participate in any way I liked but admitted that their biggest fantasy was to double team my wife while I watched. But my wife had no interest, and they confirmed that she shut it down quickly. They brought it up later while they were drunk because they figured maybe I would have some interest, and if I did, I could convince her to do it. My wife's friend then said that once I let go of my inhibitions, she guaranteed that I would enjoy myself. How they think I would enjoy any experience that involves someone else doing my wife, whether I am actively involved or not, is beyond me. I was about to say this when my wife jumped in. She told them that I would not be enjoying anything. She said she's not 22 anymore and has babies asleep upstairs. She told them that neither of us would be smashing with anyone else and she thought she made that very clear. It got a little awkward after that, and they left shortly after. My wife hugged me when they left and said she was sorry for asking me to talk with them. That was not how she expected it to go. We talked a little more, and she admitted that hearing their stories is a fun escape and even got flattered when they would tell her how much they loved being with her. But she admitted that it's become a little too real and she could not stand the thought of watching me with someone else and understands how I feel. So we agreed to take a good long break from seeing them. My wife isn't going to completely cut her best friend out of her life, but we are going to manage how we see them. No more drinking, and no more her alone with both of them in their home or ours. Shopping, lunch, and similar activities are where she is going to keep the friendship, and I can live with that.
When needed a day off, it would screw everyone over because we didn't have enough staff. There was no one to cover shifts. We were told to be alone most of the time to save on labor, but that left us all doing the jobs of 2 to 3 people. I fought cutting too many hours from certain people because we would be in trouble if we lost anyone. She would always tell me to not let myself be railroaded by my staff, but would also refuse to let me work overtime. If I lost people from cutting their hours, I would be forced to fill in those positions and work overtime. So when I would ask them what they wanted me to do, they never had an answer besides telling me whatever I was doing was wrong. When I could hire, they wouldn't let me hire anyone who wanted more than 15 hours, but didn't want me to hire students due to lack of availability. So basically, I couldn't successfully hire at all because no one wants a job where you are required to have an open availability but get no hours and do the job of several people. This week when I offered to post an ad with a company Indeed profile and assist them with hiring, they thanked me but declined. A big reason why I wanted to find a new job wasn't just because the company was a joke from the founders all the way down. I knew there was no way we were going to stay open for much longer. Our lease was up soon, and we were drowning. I had a feeling that if we closed, I would get zero heads up beforehand because they never seemed to handle anything in a manner that was appropriate or helpful for anyone besides themselves. My ex-staff and I received texts and calls from the owners today informing us that the shop was going to be temporarily closed this upcoming week, and they basically dismissed the remaining staff. This tells me they likely won't be opening the doors back up. There are a lot of little details that I won't include for the sake of brevity, but yeah. I quit my job, and they shut the whole place down. It's really sad that they wouldn't just work in their own business. Instead, they chose to leave people without jobs with no notice. That says a lot about them as people, I think. I get 9 days off between jobs that I am insanely grateful for. I haven't gotten to have more than 1 day off in a row in over a year. I'm so excited to sleep through the night without all the work stress and to get past this burnout I've been dealing with for so long. I got a whole bunch of arts and crafts supplies, and I plan to spend a lot of time in the sun. Up in the comments. Holy smokes, I didn't expect all this lol. Thanks for all the kind messages. I can definitely answer some questions that I'm seeing a lot of people ask. First, the original company is Crumble, and no, it's not Tips Treats. I already had someone message me who works for the same owners at a different business they own, because for some reason they also own 2 swim schools, so I'm a bit uncomfortable with outing myself much more. Not that that's going to help me or anything. At this point, I'm tempted to post the 7-page expose I found about the company written by an ex-franchisee who had to shut down their business. It's quite a fascinating read. Second, there are a lot of reasons why I repeatedly convinced myself to stay as long as I did. A couple of large contributors were my perfectionist tendencies and the stupidly high expectations I have for myself, and another was my team. When I come in and see my team busting their backs for me every day, it broke my heart to think about leaving them. I knew once I left, the owners would mess them over. We are all young women, and I fought for their safety and well-being the best I could. I also really wanted to believe that they were good people who just needed help. Honestly, when I think back on a lot of my actions, I think I upheld my personal values well, and I'm not sure I would do much differently. Even if I wanted to just throw in the towel and tell them what I really felt on those bad days, I didn't want the ugly part of me taking over. I've been working really hard on that. I'm not a pushover though, even if it looks like it lol. I challenge them on their odd choices quite a lot. I haven't gotten to fully start my new job since today is the last day of my little vacation, womp womp. I got to meet my new boss earlier in the week, and I'm feeling optimistic. If anyone else has any questions, I'm willing to answer them. Thanks so much to everyone for being so kind.
Tomorrow like everything's normal. I haven't told Layla or her dad yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. I have no idea if my mom or dad knows, but even thinking about it makes my head hurt. This is so much worse than I thought it was. Update 2. Last Tuesday, I messaged my parents, telling them everything my sister had told me. It wasn't until Thursday that I got a reply where they called me all sorts of names. They said I was perverted, a liar, a man-child, etc. However, after messaging back and forth with them for a while, it came out on my mom's side that my sister confirmed my story and wanted me to say it was false because neither of them wanted to believe it. It's safe to say I have no intention of talking to either of them for a long time. I told my girlfriend everything on Tuesday as well. She was a lot more supportive than I initially thought, so that worked out pretty well. On Friday, we told her father, and we started looking for apartments to move in together. As for all my things back at my parents' house, my girlfriend's dad and a few of my friends went to pick up my stuff without me. I gave them a list of all the necessary things. My friends don't know why I moved out, just that it was serious and not to ask. Which leads us to today. I know a few people on my update post commented about this being fake, and as much as I wish it wasn't, this is the hell I'm living in. Over the past week, I've been looking back at my sisters and my relationship and realized a lot of stuff that isn't normal. I'd give examples, but I just want this to be over with. Thanks for the support, and this will probably be the last update. Update 3. For a while, I forgot I made this post until it showed up on my Instagram feed a couple of weeks ago. I figured I owed you all a final close to what happened 8 months ago. To be honest, it's not much. To start, my girlfriend and I are still together, and let me just say she makes every single day worth it, and I can't imagine my life without her. I'm so lucky to wake up every morning and just be able to stare at her and remember that she's mine. She's so incredibly smart that I've seen her outwit our incredibly stubborn cat several times. Also, yeah, we got a cat. A silly little orange furball named Mikey with way too much energy for such a small body. He keeps trying to eat the fish out of the tank, lol. Pretty sure he has 2 functioning brain cells, and that's it. I'm truly living the life. She and I eventually found an apartment for us a couple of towns over. It's close to my girlfriend's college, and I got a pretty decent job here to support the both of us. My girlfriend's dad, who is an absolute saint, helped with the first and last deposit just to help us out, and I can't thank him enough. He's joked a few times about me calling him dad, so I guess that's where we are, lol. As for my parents and sister, I haven't heard anything from my parents except a few voicemails when I first moved from unknown numbers. One of my aunts told me that the truth came out a few months after I moved, and the whole family turned on them. Apparently, they left town, but I'm not entirely sure where they ended up. As for my sister, if you can even call her that, she apparently stuck around town for several months but ended up spiraling into several substances and vanished with a new boyfriend she got. I don't know where she is now, and honestly, I couldn't care less. She isn't my sister anymore and hasn't been for a while now. So that brings my story to a close. I'm sorry if it wasn't as exciting as people were expecting, and I apologize that it took me this long to remember. Thank you to everyone who sent such supportive messages and advice on what I should do. My wife groomed our neighbor's son since he was 16 and left me for him when I found out. Now 2 years later and after she had a train ran on him, his parents want me to reconnect and forgive him. I, 34M, got married to my ex, 33F, way too young at 24 and 23. She admittedly had a ton of red flags when we started dating, but it was my first serious relationship. I wasn't always very confident or outgoing compared to her, and I'll always be kicking myself for practically dancing into the arms of a narcissist. The next several years after the wedding were spent with her demanding my entire life change at her whims, mood swings, gaslighting when she seemed to be carrying on emotional affairs, isolating me, arguments out of nowhere, nights sleeping on the couch, and financial abuse from her very well-off family. One other thing was she was always more adventurous in the bedroom and always wanted to try newer and weirder things. I'm a little open-minded but sometimes had to set firm boundaries with her or shut her down when it got too uncomfortable. This is important for later. Back then, I thought by just dealing with it I was being strong and protecting our marriage. If I could go back in time, I would kick my younger self's rear. 2 years back, things came to a head. It came out that she had been carrying on a full-fledged affair with our neighbor's son, who had only been 18 for around 6 months. We knew this kid since he was 16, and at that point, she was freshly 31. I finally pulled my head out of my rear, but by that point, it was too late. The coming months absolutely sucked. I got kicked out, as her parents left the house solely to her. I never had any impression I was going to have any claim to it, so I saw that coming at least. The lawyer costs financially drained me, and I moved in with my parents for the time being while my ex, her affair partner, her family, and her affair partner's family harassed me on the daily for months. My ex tried every dirty trick in the book on her parents' dime with a divorce, but somehow, by the grace of God and my lawyer, I made it out relatively fine. She sent grueling insults with every insult you could think of from a cheating narcissist. Her affair partner painted me as a crippled old man and had his friends send insulting messages, videos of him and my ex, and whatever they could think of on the daily, and only stopped when I got law enforcement involved. My ex's family never liked me and gladly jumped at the opportunity to mock me, and the affair partner's family, who obviously saw dollar signs regardless of the greater context, had no problems joining in to score points. This brings me to around 3 weeks ago. By then, 2 years had gone by, with me back on my feet, a year of therapy under my belt, a new job, a new sense of confidence, and recently a new girlfriend. A bit of info: I never left the area, my family only lived a couple of hours away from where my ex and I lived. My job is going too well to risk getting up and leaving for parts unknown. Because I was in the same area, I got little tidbits of info regardless of whether I wanted to hear it or not. I know the affair partner's family moved away, he moved in with her, and the world slowly saw less and less of him. To sum it up, I got a call from his family to see him in the hospital. I don't know all the details, but basically, roughly over a month ago, my ex's affair partner went dark. Over a 5-month period, they slowly heard less and less from him, but a month back, they lost contact. Why it took them this long to raise hell is beyond me, but I imagine a family that would allow their son to be groomed for money isn't great at ensuring their son is okay. Police stopped by her house for a wellness check, only for him to answer the door looking like a literal zombie. The police found him, from what they describe, practically in hell. He had been routinely beaten and intimately abused nonstop for God knows how long. The whole investigation has opened up an endless amount of craziness. I've asked around for more info and got little tidbits but not much. It was found that multiple people were involved and allegedly there are videos of what they were doing to him. They found evidence of God knows how many illegal substances were being pumped into him. My ex and whoever else was involved are facing longer and longer sentences the more they find out. His family wants me to visit him as he wants to make amends. He wants to apologize, he's broken, he's scarred for life, he's suicidal, whatever reason they can spew out to bring me to him they've said it. But why should I be dragged into this crap? His own family practically allowed him to be sold, and my ex's family seems to actually have had no knowledge of this and are practically scraping their hands clean and throwing her to the wolves, but I have to step back into this? I get he was groomed, I get he was influenced, and I understand some truly awful stuff happened to him, but why should I come back to all this and let the people who hurt me know all is forgiven? They've been harassing me about this nonstop now, and even my family think I should talk to him. Edit. I guess posting about this gave me the kick in the rear to communicate with my family. Mainly, it's my parents who are encouraging reaching out. They explained their reasoning to me, and it makes sense where they are coming from. They are simply worried that if I try to ignore them, it will kick off another year-long harassment campaign from them. They saw how messed up I was last time I went through this, and they simply wanted it to end quickly so I didn't go through the same crap again. I have assured them there's no way they'll be able to go through with that again, and worst case scenario, I'll change my number again. They understand and have stopped pushing. So, I'm just gonna bow out of the situation. No dramatic confrontation, no big show to everyone. Just gonna have my lawyer draw up a statement requesting to be left alone, and I'll double check, making sure I won't have to be involved in any proceedings in the near future. From the brief chat I had with my lawyer so far, there's no real logical reason for me to be involved unless either side was getting desperate. Regardless, I have pages of documentation from way back showing my concern towards his age as well as clearly stating I was not involved in what transpired since then. I understand many of you wanted something more dramatic, but that's just how it is. All the loose ends are wrapped up, and I'm moving on. Update 1. Apologies in advance, this update will be stupid and asinine. So, as I always knew was a possibility, sending a letter from my lawyer to the affair partner's parents wasn't the bulletproof shield I was hoping it would be. Desperate people aren't swayed by mere legal matters. Within 2 days, things started spiraling out of control, and very quickly, they called me directly again. Make no mistake, I saw the writing on the wall, that somehow I'll be getting dragged into this no matter what. My parents and girlfriend were as supportive as they could be, but at some point, I said screw it and arranged to talk with the affair partner's dad. I know, I'm an idiot and a fool, but I need to actually know what's going on. To condense what was discussed without spilling any info in regards to the investigation, everyone was turning against each other and out for blood, and secrets were finally spilling. The affair partner's dad, he opened the floodgates. As I knew, everyone was basically aware that my ex groomed him, most likely starting at 16. If there was any physical proof such as messages, they're long gone. This kid was basically a bad seed, with a history of trouble without a clear direction in his future. His dad is a confusing person. He is the kind of dad that wanted to be rid of his problem child, but also was proud in a way of his son getting involved with a hot older woman with a well-off family. He basically spilled the beans that he supported the relationship as it gave him the benefit of getting his son out of his house, and gladly took whatever my ex's family offered as a token of appreciation. He was a lousy father, plain and simple. As time went by, he appeared to realize the situation he put his son in, and it only got worse with time. The affair partner's mom, she was a stay-at-home mother who always was the silent, submissive partner in the marriage. As it turns out, she raised hell from the beginning, but at the behest of her husband, he got her to drop it. He controlled her entire life practically, and I'm suspecting this marriage is way more abusive than he let on. She never was happy and always tried to get her son help and get him away from my ex. After what has happened in the last few weeks, she has had it. She is divorcing him, letting his family know what happened, and plans on cleaning him out in the divorce. The silent, submissive wife was driven too far. From what I saw of the dad, it's hit him hard how his years of bad choices have ruined his family. He is a hollow shell of a man. My ex and her family, they're tearing each other apart. My ex has lost her job, reputation, her circle of freaks, and her money. Her parents, their family humiliated, their involvement taking over local gossip, and desperate to salvage the fallout they'll endure when more people find out, are in the midst of a separation, and a brutal divorce is on the horizon. However, the possibility of an investigation is at risk due to the affair partner. The affair partner, my jaw hit the goddamn floor when I heard about him. He is backpedaling hard. Over the last 2 weeks, he has been retracting every claim, every accusation, every bit of evidence that could put these sick freaks in prison. I kid you not, and I wish I had the capacity to make this up, he has gotten the people who are on video intimately abusing him to verify with him that they were taking part in recording consensual adult content. My brain simply cannot comprehend this, it just won't allow me. Now I'm not stupid, he is clearly psychologically broken. He was alone with them for months, and he needs a psychiatrist immediately. The reason they are so desperate for me to be involved is because it's the last desperate flails of a collapsing group of narcissists and parental failures desperately trying to talk to him, and they want me involved as they need people with history with my ex to try and actually make a case since their son is doing everything he can to not make one happen. As of now, any case against my ex is in limbo. It's just so sad. This situation is so stupid all around because it was so avoidable. All the dad had to do was be a proper guiding father to his son, help him become a proper adult. All his mom had to do was not be a pushover. All my ex's parents had to do was not support an illegal relationship just to spite me. All my ex had to do was not be an awful human being. Now a kid is possibly deeply mentally broken permanently, all because the guiding figures in his life didn't care. I won't lie, I still hate him so much, but he doesn't deserve this. If I ever update again, it would be a year or so down the road after all the dust has settled. This is such a stupid, pointless situation. I am a single father, and one of the new girls in my study group is trying really hard to be a mommy to my kid. How do I respectfully tell her to BTFO? So, I, 21M, have sole custody of my son Damien, 5M. I'll be the first to admit that I'm very protective and paranoid about Damien, but I don't think I'm overreacting in this instance. For context, I'm friends with a group of people in the same major as me. The girl in question, Ivy, 19F, is a recent addition to the group. She's a bit immature, but very friendly and nice to hang out with. She tried flirting with me in the past, but I firmly rejected her, and she seemed to have gotten over it. We've known each other for about a year. Recently, they all hung out at my place for a bit. Obviously, Damien was there and met Ivy. Ivy was instantly smitten because Damien's adorable. Her behavior since then has been really off-putting. She constantly asks to babysit Damien and pouts when I say no. She thinks Damien should come to every study session or hang out, even ones later at night. She wants to talk about him constantly. 1 or 2 girls before have tried to be Damien's mom, and my response has been icing them out of our lives, but this is a lot more complicated as she's integrated into my main group of friends. I've mostly just not responded to her when she talks about Damien, but I'm looking for ways to shut her down permanently without getting everyone else involved. Update 1. My original post didn't get a lot of traction, and I didn't expect it to, but goddamn did things get strange. Some things I didn't mention in my original post that probably explain my situation a bit better. Damien is generally babysat by my mother, as I rent the apartment above her garage and she is retired. Barring that, my older sister is a stay-at-home mom, and she can take Damien in. Damien has also started kindergarten. I definitely don't need any help with childcare. Ivy is very intense and outgoing, almost overbearing. As I said before, she's 19 and still has the teenager mindset. She was very badgering about both her flirting and her childcare offers, and I think she believes that if my kid likes her, I'll like her too. I'm very careful about who I let into Damien's life, as that could affect him deeply. I also have a Facebook that I have a very tight lockdown on. I occasionally share photos of Damien there, like 3 or so a year, kind of holiday card type pictures. This is relevant. Ivy and I ended up alone together on campus, and she once again made an offer to watch Damien so I could have a night to myself. I firmly said that I don't need a babysitter, her repeated offers were not appreciated, and that spending time with my son is far from a hardship. I think that got through to her, and she stopped asking. I thought it was over, or so I thought. At the beginning of October, I went out with my family to a pumpkin patch fall festival. My sister took a picture of Damien and me together, and I thought it was a nice photo, so I uploaded it so people like my uncles and aunts upstate could see it. One of my oldest friends, who is a lesbian and has a profile picture of her kissing her girlfriend at Pride, made a DILF joke in the comments. It's the same DILF joke she's been making since Damien was born. I think it's hilarious, she thinks it's hilarious, and everyone on my Facebook knows it's a joke. Ivy has my number because of the study group. About a day after I posted that picture, I received a long, rambling text from her. She claimed that my oldest friend is secretly in love with me and is being disrespectful of my son and me. The wall of text made me think she was drunk, despite it being a Tuesday afternoon. Then I realized how she had seen the picture and comments when we're not friends on Facebook and everything is on lockdown. I later learned she had gone on a mutual friend's Facebook without his knowing. I told her that her next level Facebook stalking and immense interest in a 5-year-old was incredibly worrisome, then I blocked her. I talked to a couple of other people about it, and they mentioned they thought Ivy's behavior was getting increasingly strange and were going to talk to her about it. A mutual friend, Maggie, then called me and said that Ivy had come to her apartment sobbing about how I don't love her, I'm her dream guy, etc. Romance novel stuff, very concerning. I got a lot of similar texts until Maggie somehow convinced her to delete my number. Anyway, I ended up not talking to Ivy anymore, and she's probably not coming to the study groups anymore. Hopefully, this was the last manifestation of teenage angst, and she'll feel embarrassed about it afterward instead of something more serious. Maggie says she'll update me in case something drastic happens. Even when my manhood is securely inside my pants, it attracts crazy. My wife wants me to turn down a job offer that would give me an $80K raise because an ex from 14 years ago works there. Is this a normal request? So, I, 36M, work in the tech field, and our research area is very niche. I had issues with my current company and started interviewing at different companies. At one of the companies, I ran into an ex, let's call her Abby, who I dated 14 years ago. We dated for 3 years and broke up amicably because I wanted to pursue further studies, and she wanted me to settle down. I met my wife a year after our breakup, and I was still friends with occasional benefits with Abby until then. I was upfront about the whole situation with my wife, and she told me early on during our dating that my friendship with Abby bothered her. I loved my wife and was serious about us, and it was a no-brainer for me to stop hanging out with Abby. Abby was confused but understood why I did it. We have not spoken to each other since then. My wife and I have been married for 11 years now and have one super cute toddler. During the interview process, Abby was one of the interviewers, and we had a nice professional discussion. I received a job offer from that company the very next week. I would be in middle management, and Abby would be directly reporting to me. I have already informed the hiring manager about Abby, and they seem to have no problems with it. I also have 2 more job offers. I negotiated with all the companies, and the first company, the one where Abby works, is willing to pay me almost $80K more than the other companies. However, my wife reminded me that I promised her many years ago that I would not be in touch with Abby. She is asking me to take the offer from the company willing to offer the second highest compensation. Her reasoning is that it would be awkward for me to be Abby's manager, and since we both work in the same field, it is not like I can transfer her to another manager. She insists that it's not insecurity but that I made a promise. She says that it's ultimately my choice, but she does not feel comfortable with me managing Abby and working with her. I see her side, as I would have to travel with my team, including Abby, for a few days to an on-site location at least once a month. I can see why it would make my wife nervous. I personally want to join the first company as the compensation is higher and the experience would be very valuable to me. Would I be wrong if I decided to go with the first company? It would offer my family a lot of financial security and be good for my career. I do not want that taken away because of Abby. At the same time, I want my wife to be comfortable and not constantly worried about the situation I will be putting her in. Commenter. Is Abby married with kids? You say the brief interaction was professional, but you don't really know Abby's viewpoint or motives here. Your wife is clearly insecure, but she may have good reason to be. I can't tell whether you're full of it or not. This is factually a great setup for you to cheat. I think only you really know whether you are being sketchy, but your wife's reaction is well within normal. My wife did all the investigative work and found out that Abby is divorced and has no kids. That was one of the reasons why she was a bit apprehensive about me taking the job as well. Update 1. I wanted to give a quick update. I posted a week ago about being confused over a job offer that my wife wanted me to reject because my ex, Abby, would be directly reporting to me. I know many of you pointed out why it is such a bad idea, but I want to be honest here. The reason I wrote the post was to get ideas on how I could convince my wife that I should take the position. I felt that I have never given my wife a reason not to trust me, except one time, which is a long story that I won't get into here, and I should not be making important life decisions that benefit my family because of Abby, whom I have not spoken to in 14 years. On Friday evening, we had a long discussion as our kid was at my sister-in-law's place for a playdate. As many of you pointed out, my wife might be insecure with me hanging out with Abby specifically because we were friends with benefits after our breakup. I asked her about it and told her to be honest, as I would never make a decision without her being 100% on board. My wife said that out of all my ex-girlfriends, she felt a bit insecure about Abby. The reason was because I did not have a clean breakup with her and had lingering feelings even when I met my wife. For context, when I met my wife through mutual friends, I was still hooking up with Abby for a few months after. However, I cleared things with Abby and broke up for good before I asked my wife on our first date. My wife had heard about how I was not able to get over Abby before that and only agreed to date me after I told her that I had decided to go no contact with Abby. I asked my wife if she feels I will be less loyal to her if I am around Abby. My wife and child are everything to me, and I assured her that there is no circumstance where I would even think of stepping out of line and risking that. I also assured her that I will maintain professional boundaries with each of my direct reports, as I have been doing for many years, and Abby will be no different. However, if I miss out on this job opportunity because of Abby, I will always feel like, irrespective of what I do, my wife does not trust me 100%. My wife said that she trusts me completely and does not want me to feel like I am doing something wrong. She said she does not want hypothetical scenarios to affect the important decisions I make in my career and is okay with me accepting the offer. She asked me to make sure that we set up specific rules about Abby, such as no communication outside of work, maintaining strictly professional communication, and always over-communicating with my wife about everything related to Abby. Abby messaged me on Saturday about how it was great to see me during the interview process, and I immediately told my wife. Based on her idea, I replied to Abby on LinkedIn and will make sure any of our communication stays there. I had until Monday to accept the offer. Yesterday, when I went to my office, I was planning to call the other company during lunchtime. However, my manager asked me to come to a meeting room to discuss something urgent. My current company knew that I was entertaining other offers, as I had told them previously, and decided to match the offer from Abby's company. It is not exactly the same compensation, but it is only $20,000 less than their offer. Plus, they also assured me that they would promote me as soon as a director-level position opens up in one of the teams. It was amazing, and I called my wife. She was very happy, and of course, I decided to stay at my current job. Overall, I feel happy that I got a big raise at my current place and also know that my wife is not insecure and trusts me 100%. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking what the one thing was, I'm adding it here instead of replying individually. It was stupid. Years ago, my wife's friend told me we kissed while drunk, and I did not tell my wife. Her friend thought I was her husband and apologized a lot. I told my wife a few days later out of guilt. My wife had seen the whole incident and laughed because I drunkenly pushed her away after she tried to kiss me, which I do not remember. But that was about it. She still teases me and her friend about it to this day. Commenter. Never ever take a counteroffer. There's a reason 80% of people who take counteroffers are gone after 6 months, and 90% after 12 months. The issues you were originally looking to address are still there, and your company now knows you're willing to leave. They will attempt to replace you and just want you there in the meantime. Never take a counteroffer. My best friend has a thing for married women, but last week he crossed a line at my engagement party and I don't know what to do. So, my 25M best friend, 25M, has a thing for married older women. Over the years, he has had surprising success in this area. It started when he was 18 and slept with a married 30-year-old woman with a kid. They were both waiters at a restaurant, and after months of flirting, she slept with him. In the 7 years since, there have been 12 of them, all married or engaged, with ages ranging from 30 to 52. In the beginning, I thought the whole thing was funny, but as the years have gone on, I have grown disgusted by this behavior. If we are at a bar and he sees a bachelorette party, he is hitting on the bride-to-be. He coaches his nephew's little league team just to meet the moms. He's had to leave 3 different jobs because he was sleeping with married coworkers, and the husbands found out, leading to confrontations while he was on the job. The last straw for me was last week. I recently got engaged, and my fiancé's family threw us an engagement party. It wasn't a surprise, so my fiancé and I both invited who we wanted. One of the people I wanted there was one of my former managers at work, let's call him Tom. I am a CPA at a big firm, and Tom was really a mentor to me when I started. He left to work in the industry, but we kept in touch and are still close. Tom is 40 and just the nicest guy you will ever meet. So he and his wife, 38F, came to our engagement party. I had never met his wife before, but she looked absolutely stunning. At one point during the party, I saw my friend talking to Tom's wife while Tom took a phone call. I immediately went over, interrupted the conversation, pulled my friend aside, and told him not even to think about it. My friend said he wasn't, which was BS, but I thought he took my warning seriously. I was wrong. A few weeks later, Tom called me and told me that his wife had been acting strange since the engagement party. He went through her phone and found text messages with another guy. The texts included pics exchanged on both sides, and it was very clear that they had met up to smash. Tom had confronted his wife the night before, and of course, it was my friend she'd slept with. Tom was devastated, crying on the phone. He wasn't even angry, he just wanted to know why she did it and was asking me to talk to my friend to get some more details. I called my friend right after I got off the phone with Tom and exploded on him, basically ending our 20-year friendship. It's been a week, and my friend hasn't stopped apologizing. Other than his despicable behavior with married women, he has been a good friend to me. We have been like brothers since kindergarten. It hurts to throw away someone who has been such a big part of my life, but I just can't be a party to this anymore. I'm making the right decision, right? Edit. I do want to add that, aside from my friend's bad morals with married women, he has been a really good friend to me over the years. If I needed anything, he was the first one there. He's never slept with any of the girls I've dated and never tried. A lot of people are also saying that my fiancé would be next, but that ignores the fact that my fiancé would never cheat on me. A cheater has a personality defect. My friend clearly has one, but so do the women who cheat on their husbands. They are all inherently narcissistic and care only about their personal gratification. My friend hit on my fiancé before we met, and she shot him down abruptly then. I'm not worried about her, but I am sick over Tom, and I do bear responsibility for what happened. Update 1. It's been about a week since I posted, and I wanted to give an update on how things ended up with my now former friend. I agreed to meet with him last night and hear him out. So, we went for a drink, and he apologized profusely for putting me in this spot and said he would never do that again. I took this opportunity to really express how disgusted I was with his behavior and that I couldn't be friends with someone who intentionally tries to ruin families. I told him that Tom and his wife have 2 children, they were happily married, and he's now destroyed their family. I asked if that was something he felt bad about. He said yes, but I could tell he was full of crap. I ignored the fact that he was lying because I wanted to know how all of this went down. Tom's wife didn't want to share a lot of details with him, so I promised that I would find out as much as I could. I asked to see the text between them. He resisted, but I threatened to walk out and never talk to him again, so he gave me the phone. He contacted her on Facebook after the party, and they talked there for a day or 2 before switching to text. The conversations turned intimate very quickly, and it was clear that Tom's wife was interested in a quick fling. She said in the text that she loves her husband, but that didn't stop her. I was shocked by this, but my friend wasn't. This wasn't the first happily married woman who took up his offer to smash with no strings attached. Beyond what was in the texts, my friend said Tom's wife just wanted a temporary escape, to be someone she couldn't be with her husband, and once she got it out of her system, she would just go back to normal. Then he started telling me what she was like when they were together, but I stopped him. I said we aren't teenagers anymore and none of this is funny. I told him I'm done with this and that both he and Tom's wife disgust me. I left and blocked his number. I know I should have done this years ago, but I didn't. I called Tom after I left and lied. I said I wasn't able to get any details. I couldn't tell him that his wife just wanted some wild action. That isn't something I would want to know. Tom and his wife are going to go to counseling. If it were me, I'd divorce her. The level of disrespect is off the charts, but maybe Tom is a better man than me. My fiancé is happy that I have finally cut off my now former best friend. But I am sad. I hope he gets help someday before he messes with the wrong guy's wife. Thanks for listening. Commenter. You are making a massive mistake by not telling Tom, and it makes me doubt your sincerity. If you know that she purposefully betrayed him for a meaningless fling, why would you not tell him? Who knows what she said or promised that can be contradicted or shown to be more lies with your truth. After years of applauding and supporting your scumbag friend's behavior, this is your one chance to help someone. He already knows they smashed and he's seen a lot of the texts. I just couldn't tell him that she wants to have wild fun with someone else that she doesn't want to have with him. She apparently just isn't attracted to him like that, he doesn't bring that out in her. I wouldn't want to know that. I don't know how I would ever have intimacy with her again knowing she thought that of me, the mother of my children, and look me in the face while he does it. Update 1. After I posted, I had a deeper conversation with my wife about her friends and expressed my discomfort about being around people who are lusting after my wife and fantasizing about doing it with her in front of me. She said she understood how I felt but told me that there was absolutely nothing I should be concerned about. To my wife, her friend and her husband are not serious people. They are fun to be around, but that's it. She experimented with them in her early 20s, but she was a different person then. She was very adventurous in the bedroom in college and right after and did a lot of things she'd never think of doing now. She said she's a 35-year-old married mother of 2 with a serious career, and she simply isn't interested in behaving like that anymore. Not to mention that she is happily married and loves me. While I understood all that and I do trust her, I told her that my point still stands, I am just not comfortable around them. My wife then asked if we could talk it out with her friends and if, after that talk, I'm still uncomfortable, then she will agree to whatever I am comfortable with. So I agreed, and we met last night at our house. They both apologized and swore to never bring it up again. But I could tell that neither thought of this as a big deal, and from their tone, it seemed like they thought I was being overly sensitive. So I raised that point, and they conceded that they did think I was being silly. They told me that the time they had with my wife was a very memorable experience and they wanted to experience it again and simply asked if my wife would be interested in participating with me or with my approval. They said that they would have been happy to allow me to participate in any way I liked but admitted that their biggest fantasy was to double team my wife while I watched. But my wife had no interest, and they confirmed that she shut it down quickly. They brought it up later while they were drunk because they figured maybe I would have some interest, and if I did, I could convince her to do it. My wife's friend then said that once I let go of my inhibitions, she guaranteed that I would enjoy myself. How they think I would enjoy any experience that involves someone else doing my wife, whether I am actively involved or not, is beyond me. I was about to say this when my wife jumped in. She told them that I would not be enjoying anything. She said she's not 22 anymore and has babies asleep upstairs. She told them that neither of us would be smashing with anyone else and she thought she made that very clear. It got a little awkward after that, and they left shortly after. My wife hugged me when they left and said she was sorry for asking me to talk with them. That was not how she expected it to go. We talked a little more, and she admitted that hearing their stories is a fun escape and even got flattered when they would tell her how much they loved being with her. But she admitted that it's become a little too real and she could not stand the thought of watching me with someone else and understands how I feel. So we agreed to take a good long break from seeing them. My wife isn't going to completely cut her best friend out of her life, but we are going to manage how we see them. No more drinking, and no more her alone with both of them in their home or ours. Shopping, lunch, and similar activities are where she is going to keep the friendship, and I can live with that.